Chapter 3791. A 10,000-year-old corpse. From afar, the scene was extremely spectacular. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The expressions of all the powerhouses who had attacked Lin Ling changed drastically. In their eyes, countless stone giants were crawling out of the ground, and a large number of ancient tree giants were reviving in the surroundings. Meteorites were crashing down from the sky, and when they landed on the ground, they merged into magma giants. This was like the horn of war for the ancient races. At this moment, everyone's bodies began to tremble. However, as the rumbling continued, a faint voice suddenly drifted out. "You said that I comprehended this before I died? No, what I want to say is that I'm not alone." The voice came from Lin Ling, causing Wanyan Bupo's soul to tremble. This sudden turn of events made him realize that he had no choice but to take action. His seclusion had been disrupted. Rumble. Mud rolled and the grave exploded. A figure rushed out from the coffin and landed heavily on the ground. It was Wanyan Bupa. However, he was clearly in a bad mood as he roared, "Kill him!" Previously, he was at the most critical moment of his breakthrough. However, he was interrupted. How could he be in a good mood? It could be said that all his previous efforts had been wasted. Meanwhile, the members of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance were all in shock. This was because countless giants were striding toward them from the ground before them. Among them, the blue-robed youth stood unmoving like a god of war. It was as if he was the master who had opened the gates of the ancient giants. "Why are you still standing there like idiots? Don't tell me you think they'll let us go." Seeing that everyone was stunned, Wanyan Bupo shouted again. Everyone came to their senses and knew that it was either you die or I live. They once again unleashed their full strength, forming a scene of surging spiritual chi, charging towards Lin Ling. However, just as they moved, the giants in front of them also moved. After the Wood God clan regained their vitality, their battle prowess also recovered. A fist formed by trees glided along the ground like a siege chariot. Everywhere it passed, not only did it destroy everyone's attacks, but it also swept everyone away like fried beans. Bang bang bang. Next, behind the stone giants, several stout members of the stone god race appeared. They were like thousands of galloping horses, but as they ran, their bodies grew taller and taller until they became small giants. They held axes and hammers that were more than 5 meters long in their hands and fiercely charged over. Swinging left and right, he shattered all kinds of powerful attacks and sent the members of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance flying. The scene was simply one-sided. The Heaven-Crushing Alliance, which had dominated the demonic forest for 100 years, had been reduced to such a sorry state. Wanyan Bupo was clearly stunned by this. He also remembered what his father had said. Don't let the 3 races form an alliance. The thing that his father feared the most had finally happened. How could this be? The Wood Gods had been deprived of their most powerful means. The Fire God race had no leader. The Stone God clan stood aloof from worldly affairs. But why did they join forces today? No need to guess, it's me. Amidst the chaotic battle ahead, Lin Ling walked over with a smile and said faintly, "It's you." Wanyan Bupo's eyes instantly turned toward Lin Ling, and the majestic scene of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood appeared in his eyes. His eyes were filled with killing intent. It was Lin Ling. It was all Lin Ling's fault. He had no enmity with Lin Ling, but Lin Ling had destroyed their efforts and even wanted to uproot them? What a bully! Of course, this was only his wishful thinking. Lin Ling had passed through the demonic forest, and he had no enmity with the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Wasn't he also going to kill Lin Ling? The difference was that he had failed, and Lin Ling had instead come knocking on his door. "You piece of trash, you piece of trash, you think you can battle Longyang? You have no idea how powerful the most powerful circle of the Divine 3 Halls is. Trash, I'll definitely kill you, definitely." Corpse aura surged out of Wanyan Bupo's body like a tidal wave, and everyone near him was swept away. Following that, his core members suddenly screamed in pain, and their bodies started to distort. "Ah, young master, no. Ah." Their voices and bodies were constantly changing, and finally they turned into corpses. Furthermore, from the corpse aura, they were probably 10,000-year-old corpses. At the same time, Wanyan Bupo was also changing, and his body was distorting. Lin Ling looked at him indifferently, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Kill me? You just said the same thing, but I'm still fine. Ah, you will know. Ah. Wanyan Bupo's voice also became hoarse, and it sounded like metal scraping against the ground. At the same time, a stinky corpse aura floated out of his body, and his skin peeled off and started to rot. He didn't look like a human nor a ghost. This was 100,000-year-old corpse. Terrifying. This caused Lin Ling's eyes to burn with the flames of battle. 100,000-year-old corpse. This was an ancestor-level corpse. Even Lin Ling and Li Xiaoyao's generation didn't have a 100,000-year-old history. It looked like this Wanyan Bupo found an old corpse from somewhere, and then planted a giant parasite in his body, completely controlling this old corpse. Furthermore, this was an 8th grade talent, and was indeed extraordinary. Looking at the others, they were pitiful. They followed Wanyan Bupo, and were unknowingly planted with parasites, and became old corpses, ending up in a state that didn't look like a human nor a ghost. As for the surroundings, they were all under the control of the giants of the various races. The people of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance were either dead, injured, or fleeing. It looked like the roots of the demon forest had been dug up. In the end, only Wanyan Bupo and the old corpses beside him were left. Lord Envoy will help you. Queen. At this moment, the queen's voice came from behind. She also knew that Wanyan Bupo's strength was not weak. No need, leave this guy to me. I also want to see how powerful an 8th grade ultimate desolate body is, because he's an expert ranked in the top 300 of the god list. If I can't even defeat him, how can I defeat heaven-seeking martial god's disciple 3 years later? Yes. Lin Ling smiled and refused. Within his body, his 6 dantians spun wildly, and the enormous realm essence was like a torrential river, providing Lin Ling with enormous strength. Lin Ling's skin also quietly turned black, and his dragon claws slowly grew. The realm-swallowing beast and twin dragon innate skills appeared. At the same time, countless tentacles appeared behind him, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, like a petal-like wing. Facing 100,000-year-old corpse, Lin Ling obviously didn't hold back, and erupted with his strongest attack. Looking at Wanyan Bupo, his back was hunched, and pieces of flesh continuously fell from his body, smelling extremely rotten. However, the wisps of death chi on his body gave off an extremely strong pressure. Wanyan Bupo staggered towards Lin Ling, as if he would collapse at any moment. Chapter 3792. Clash. Wow! All of a sudden, they opened their mouths and spat out a green putrid gas that shot towards Lin Ling like a water column. Clang! Lin Ling raised his sword to block. When the water column hit Lin Ling's greatsword, it immediately sputtered and landed on the ground, corroding the earth. Even when it landed on Lin Ling's body, it was corroding him. This made Lin Ling's expression turn grave. His godly devil body was extremely powerful, but it was still corroded. This also showed how terrifying the corpse chi was. He had to deal with those old corpses first. Otherwise, if he was disturbed while fighting with Wanyan Bupo, it would be extremely disadvantageous to Lin Ling. Gathering all the energy in his body, Lin Ling stomped on the ground and pounced towards the old corpses at a terrifying speed. Soon after, his sharp sword ruthlessly slashed down. This first strike was obviously very smooth. One of the old corpses was split into 2 by Lin Ling corpse chi soared into the sky and completely exploded. However, just as Lin Ling was about to slash at the second old corpse, Lin Ling was shocked to see that although these old corpses seemed to be staggering, they were actually extremely fast when they moved, reaching the speed of 1,000 worlds. Unfortunately, Lin Ling's speed was 1,500 realm speed. Therefore, after Lin Ling recovered from his shock, he took a step forward and slashed out again, successfully killing the second old corpse. There were still 3 left. Clang! At this moment, a sense of danger came over him. Lin Ling instinctively used his tyrannical song to block behind him. Just as he finished his movement, a claw appeared on his greatsword. It was Wanyan Bupo. You are not the only one who possesses 1,500 realm speed. Although he did not manage to sneak an attack on Lin Ling, Wanyan Bupo still let out a sinister laugh. Lin Ling's heart instantly turned heavy. Although he knew that Wanyan Bupo would definitely die, He had to admit that a half-step martial god with an 8th grade ultimate desolate body was indeed very strong. One had to know that he was currently a 14th grade talent. However, when facing Wanyan Bupo, he did not feel the pleasure of crushing him. Therefore, this was definitely a strong opponent. You want to kill my soldiers, have you asked me? Wanyan Bupo spoke again. Hehe, I indeed haven't asked. Then let me ask you now, can I kill your soldiers? Lin Ling maintained his posture with his sword behind him and said indifferently, no. Wanyan Bupo immediately replied. His voice was dignified, as if he said no, it meant no. Let's see if I can't. A smile appeared on Lin Ling's face, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. When the 3 old corpses sensed that Lin Ling was going to kill them, they jumped up and down and flew into the distance. Obviously, they wouldn't allow Lin Ling to do as he wished. Even though they wouldn't be able to affect the outcome of the battle even if they didn't die, they knew that this was the first time their young master and Lin Ling were clashing. So they couldn't allow their young master to lose and weaken his momentum. However, before the 3 old corpses could run very far, 3 enormous shadows pounced on them from the sky. Like an eagle stalking a hare, they pressed the 3 old corpses down to the ground and began to tear at them crazily. The 3 old corpses looked like they were eating barbecued meat. And they were none other than the 3 evil spirits. Wanyan Bupo was infuriated. He did not expect Lin Ling to have such a thing, and it was so crazy. Little did he know that even though his 3 old corpses were outstanding half-martial gods, the white golden demon spirit and the black golden demon spirit were both half-martial gods. Thus they had no reason to be afraid. Lin Ling, I did not expect you to use such despicable means, Wanyan Bupo said in a low voice. Ho, I am not like the others. Sometimes I believe in using the simplest method to kill someone. Therefore, I will not attack unless necessary. If I can kill someone with my sword, I will not use my mouth. If I am too lazy to attack, I will ask my bodyguards to do it. Lin Ling replied calmly. This was what Wanyan Bupo had said not long ago. Lin Ling was returning the favor to him. Bang! Hearing this, Wanyan Bupo did not waste any more time. He moved his claws and pounced on Lin Ling. The angle of his attack was extremely tricky. Not only was it fast, but it was also targeting Lin Ling's elixir field. Apparently, he knew that the elixir field was the source of Lin Ling's strength. When Lin Ling saw how tricky Wanyan Bupo's attack was, he immediately stepped back. He drew a semicircle in the air with his tyrannical song and slashed it down in front of him. As soon as the sword slashed down, Wanyan Bupo's claws arrived. His speed was extremely fast. If Lin Ling did not react quickly enough, he would have been hit. This was also the first time Lin Ling had fought against an expert whose speed was comparable to his. Rumble. The sword and the claws clashed, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard for a long time. However, Lin Ling's sword did not manage to cut off Wanyan Bupo's claws. It only left a sword mark on them. Being ranked in the top 300 on the divine ranking stairway was indeed a well-deserved reputation. Lin Ling's battle intent surged. He knew that if he could defeat Wanyan Bupo, it would mean that he had entered a new circle on the divine ranking stairway. To be honest, when Wentian Martial God had summoned the group of experts, Lin Ling had also felt the pressure. He knew that there would always be someone stronger than him. However, he had a strong character since young. The more pressure he was under, the stronger his resistance would be. Therefore, he had been working hard to enter that powerful circle. Just as Lin Ling was thinking about it, Wanyan Bupo had arrived once again. His claws brought along a cold wind as they swept out and across. One had to admit that after he had turned into an old corpse, not only was his speed terrifying, even his strength was terrifying. Clang! Lin Ling raised his sword to block the attack. His dragon claws immediately felt numb. Wanyan Bupo probably had the strength of 10,000 worlds. Your talent overlay is just as I thought. You can't unleash the full power of your talent overlay. You're just relying on your level to suppress me. Wanyan Bupo continued to swing his claws. Through the collision, he had a rough idea of Lin Ling's strength. He had to admit that Lin Ling was indeed very strong. If he had reached the half-step martial god realm, he knew that he wouldn't be his opponent. Because Lin Ling's strongest trump card was the final world's most terrifying King's Path. The so-called King's Path was strong in defense, fast in speed and fierce in attack. It was the most direct and fierce martial path. However, this kind of martial path was also the most difficult to cultivate. It required great perseverance and great luck to cultivate it successfully. Therefore, most people didn't walk the King's Path. Instead, they used their talent to assist them. For example, they used ice to freeze their enemies. For example, they used ghost element to be famous for being strange and so on. When the two of them fought, it was dazzling. In a breath's time, they had exchanged 3,000 moves. From this, one could see how terrifying they were. In the distance, the experts of various races were shocked, but they didn't make a move. As for Wanyan Bupo, after the continuous exchanges, he gradually understood Lin Ling's pattern. His eyes flickered with a cold light. His speed suddenly increased by a notch. He quickly became aggressive and his claws clawed out. Chapter 3793. 8th grade talent Tai Sui. Lin Ling had also used up a lot of his Jieyuan under Wanyan Bupo's torrential attacks. Although his Dantian had an endless supply of Jieyuan, that was only relative. If the opponent was slightly stronger than him, the rate of depletion would be even faster. It was just that there were very few people who could make him deplete his Jieyuan. Lin Ling tensed up as he watched the claws coming at him. His eyes were filled with seriousness as he held his sword with both hands and slashed at the claws. Clang! If a powerhouse who was slightly weaker than Lin Ling faced this slash, they would definitely be split into two. However, against a 100,000-year-old corpse, this slash was clearly not enough to kill it. A 100,000-year-old corpse that had not been destroyed for a long time was no longer under Huan Yu's control. Clang! The crisp sound of metal clashing could be heard as Wanyan Bupo's claws grabbed Lin Ling's tyrannical song sword. His lips curled into a sinister smile. At this moment, Lin Ling frowned as an uneasy thought arose in his mind. However, a powerful force came and pressed down the tyrannical song sword in his hand. This time, without the tyrannical song sword in front of him, Lin Ling's chest was exposed. However, Wanyan Bupo's claws were also pressing down on his sword. Even if his weakness was exposed, Lin Ling would not be affected. However, how could a 100,000-year-old corpse not have a trump card? Corpse fragrance konjac. A beautiful flower bloomed on Wanyan Bupo's rotten chest. The flower was as big as a millstone, but it grew rapidly. Its petals were formed from withered claws as it pounced on Lin Ling's chest. Not good. Lin Ling retreated quickly, but it was too late. The flower was like a spinning top as it spun wildly around Lin Ling's chest, causing flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. It looked like it was going to kill Lin Ling. It was obvious that Wanyan Bupo had been preparing this killer move since the beginning. His goal was to kill Lin Ling in one hit. However, at the critical moment, black vines rushed out of Lin Ling's left arm and wrapped around it, forcibly stopping the spinning claw flower. Wanyan Bupo narrowed his eyes. This Lin Ling really had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. After all, he'd once relied on this natural talent to kill a martial god. Even though that martial god's natural talent wasn't great, it was still a proud accomplishment that couldn't be erased. With the corpse fragrance konjac being blocked, Wanyan Bupo decided to stop while he was ahead. However, he also took advantage of the moment when Lin Ling was injured to forcefully pull with his claws. Like a kite, it flew out in an arc and smashed into the ground. Clang! Tyrannical Song's sword left his hand. Seeing this, Lin Ling rushed over anxiously. However, Wanyan Bupo sneered and appeared in front of the Tyrant Song's sword even faster than Lin Ling. He then said ferociously, "Without a sword, how are you going to stop me? How are you going to attack?" Clang! As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled out the sword beside his feet. However, when he was halfway through pulling it out, a terrifying murderous aura rushed out from the sword, causing Wanyan Bupo's expression to change drastically. Subconsciously, he quickly let go of the sword. This sword was so strange. It had such a strong murderous aura. He really didn't know how Lin Ling controlled it. Of course, not only was Wanyan Bupo shocked, but he was also furious. It was as if he had been played by Lin Ling. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have pulled out the sword. Who said that I can't attack without a sword? Clang! However, at this moment, a cold voice came from behind him. Wanyan Bupo's body trembled as he turned around. The first thing he saw was Lin Ling stretching out his left arm. Countless vines rushed out and wrapped around him. Oh no! Clang! Wanyan Bupo knew that he was in trouble. Lin Ling smiled coldly and said with a hint of madness, "Next, it's my turn. Go." Lin Ling clenched his dragon claw and activated all of his realm essence. He combined it with his physical strength and punched out like a storm. Bang! 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 All of the punches landed on Wanyan Bupo's chest, causing his flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. Corpse chi rose to the sky. He had never expected that Lin Ling would be so fierce without a sword. He even suspected that Lin Ling had purposely thrown away his sword to lure him into a trap. After all, they were on par with each other in terms of strength. Whoever exposed a flaw first would affect the entire battle. Lin Ling was indeed cunning. Enough! Enough! After being punched tens of thousands of times by Lin Ling, Wanyan Bupo finally exploded with a towering corpse chi and broke out of Little Kunlun's restraints. This showed how terrifying his talent was. Little Kunlun specialized in sealing talents. However, against 100,000 years old corpse, the sealing time was obviously much shorter. Lin Ling sighed inwardly. No wonder Wanyan Bupo was ranked 300 on the divine stairway. He was still alive after being punched tens of thousands of times by Lin Ling. If these attacks had landed on other half-step martial gods, they would have been smashed into meat paste by Lin Ling. This also showed how significant the effect of increasing one's talent by one grade was. Shaking his head, Lin Ling walked towards the tyrannical song sword step by step. He pulled it out and put it back into the scabbard. "My sword is not that easy to take!" Exclamation point. In the distance, Wanyan Bupo was stunned. Green veins appeared on his forehead and they were wriggling like worms. It seemed that Lin Ling had purposely lured him into a trap. Moreover, Lin Ling had put away the sword. This meant that it did not matter whether Lin Ling had the sword or not. Wanyan Bupo had been so proud of himself. It turned out that it was just his wishful thinking. Very good. Lin Ling, I have underestimated you. However, don't be too proud. Let me tell you, with Wentian martial god's strength, he will be able to nurture Longyang to a new height in 3 years. You will not be able to compete with him. Wanyan Bupo's murderous intent grew stronger after being put in such a difficult position by a martial ancestor junior. Then he sneered. Your technique is indeed powerful and can stack talents. However, it has a huge flaw, which is that you can't unleash the full potential of your talent. Now, I'll show you the true power of an 8th grade talent. After he finished speaking, his flesh and bones fell as if they were being corroded. A pile of mud appeared on the ground. No, it should be a pile of rotten flesh. However, this pile of mud carried with it a sense of fatal danger. Furthermore, after the mud gathered, it began to wriggle slowly and turned into a giant silkworm. However, this silkworm looked disgusting, as if it had been buried in the ground for hundreds of thousands of years. It was extremely stinky. Taisui corpse silkworm. Suddenly, the flesh silkworm released an ancient voice. It actually became enormous, covering the heavens and covering the earth. It was completely condensed from meat paste. Taisui. The people from the other tribes were shocked. This was because Taisui was an extremely strange thing. It was not restricted by the universe and was hidden in the darkness of the universe. It was said that it was formed by the filthy chi of heaven and earth. Goo, that is a type of goo. Chapter 3794. Defeat. Goo, that's a type of goo. Suddenly, the leader of the Stone God tribe shouted, Lord Totem, be careful. The Stone God tribe had been digging for stones all year round, so they knew what the Taisui fungus was. It was something that the ancients used to prolong life. However, although the Taisui fungus looked like meat, it was actually extremely dirty. Once it was invaded by foul energy, it would turn into a Taisui fungus. Could it be that Wanyan Bupo's talent is actually the Taisui fungus? The 100,000-year-old corpse was actually occupied by his talent. The leader of the Fire God tribe exclaimed. This meant that Wanyan Bupo was going to use goo on Lin Ling. Everyone, don't move. He's mine. However, when everyone wanted to help Lin Ling rejected them. This battle was also a test for him. But now he knew that it was time to give it his all. Of course, before going all out, Lin Ling also tested the power of this meat wall. However, once his time-space divine steel and dark sword were unleashed, they immediately lost their connection. Foul energy indeed had the power to contaminate all kinds of energy. Lin Ling's ordinary methods lost their effect in an instant. Looks like it's really extraordinary. However, Wanyan Bupo is right. Because of the stacking of talents, it is indeed difficult for me to display the true characteristics of each great talent. But do you think I only have one method? Do you think that my strength comes from the superposition of my innate skills? Lin Ling no longer hid his methods, and his soul power finally erupted. Step of wisdom. At this moment, the Tai Sui fungus in front of him became even bigger, and it drowned Lin Ling, its foul energy soaring to the sky. However, it did not know that this huge Tai Sui fungus had already been sealed in the parallel world by Lin Ling. Calamity destroying Sun Bao. A dragon Bao roared, and the language of Buddha and God filled the air. Divine Majesty. Sixth arrow. What is 5? 1. Suffering day and night, leading to a calamity. 2. 1 is full, many are full. 3. Sin weapon trident eagle snake wolf dog. 4. Dragon god sky ghost. 5. If one falls into this prison, 10,000 deaths and 10,000 lives. 6. Because they are continuous, they are called seamless. Seamless Tao. Everyone heard this ancient divine language. This also let them know that this power could restrain the foul energy. But it was too late. Because the Tai Sui fungus had completely drowned Lin Ling. This meant that Lin Ling had been poisoned by a goo worm, and would be completely controlled by Wanyan Bupo. It was even possible that Wanyan Bupo had taken over Lin Ling's body, and become the next Lin Ling. Lord Envoy. Looking at the terrifying mountain of flesh in front of her, the queen could not help but cry out. Then without hesitation, she wanted to save Lin Ling. Boom! However, at this moment endless brilliance bloomed. The black and white arrows appeared out of thin air, pierced through the flesh, and shot into the distance, sprinkling down endless Buddhist light. Under this light, the mountain of flesh seemed to melt like ice. Rumble! Then a figure was sent flying. After rubbing pathetically on the ground a few times, he finally smashed into the distance, causing a large amount of dust to rise into the sky. The blue-robed man slowly walked out from the light that scattered down from the sky. The corners of his mouth were still curled into an arc as he muttered to himself, "I don't only have the ability to stack my innate talent." Looking at the man, the people of the 3 tribes were all stunned. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. It was as if time had stopped. The previous scene lingered in everyone's minds. They realized that Lin Ling had actually defeated Wanyan Bupo. More importantly, Lin Ling was only at the intermediate stage of the martial ancestor realm. In the distance, many people of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance were also watching the battle. At this moment, their bodies were all trembling. Lin Ling, who was ranked 400 on the divine ranking, had actually defeated Wanyan Bupo, who was ranked 300. One had to know that the divine ranking and the stairway to heaven gathered the top elites of the world. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for a normal person to rank up. However, Lin Ling had crazily shot up to the 300th rank. If I remember correctly, he defeated Duan Wuhan not too long ago. That's right, it was not too long ago. Moreover, this guy wants to challenge martial god Wen Tian's disciple. Yeah, I always thought that he was overestimating himself. However, based on his current progress, even if martial god Wen Tian's disciple has endless cultivation resources, Lin Ling might still lose. The people discussed animatedly. Their hearts were like thunder. Lord Envoy, are you all right? The Empress rushed toward Lin Ling and took out a bottle of 10,000 spirit water. However, Lin Ling shook his head. I'm fine. It's just some minor injuries. In reality, he had won this battle with great difficulty. The injuries he had suffered were not light. However, his recovery ability was strong. Thus, as long as Wanyan Bupo was defeated, he would be fine. Of course, if Wanyan Bupo was stronger, it would be hard to say. Next, Lin Ling gently waved his hand and the dust in front of him was blown away. Then Lin Ling strode forward. On the ground in front of him there was a huge crater. Wanyan Bupo was lying there in a sorry state. His lower body was completely destroyed and he was constantly coughing up blood. When he saw Lin Ling walking over, his eyes were filled with shock. Lin Ling had defeated him. Previously, he had clearly wanted to devour Lin Ling. However, A mysterious force had suddenly appeared and sealed his strength. Then it was the terrifying Buddha god's arrow. His talent and strength were completely powerless against that arrow. He had a feeling that it would not be difficult for that arrow to kill a martial god. He had never expected that Lin Ling from the Third Divine Hall would have the strength to defeat someone from their circle. You've lost. Lin Ling stood in front of Wanyan Bupo and smiled faintly. Hearing this, Wanyan Bupo's eyes turned ferocious. Lin Ling, I admit that I have underestimated you. His voice was filled with resentment. In the future, I will definitely kill you and turn you into my venomous insect. He gritted his teeth as if he was making a blood oath. Lin Ling's face was still expressionless. He and Wanyan Bupo had been enemies for a long time. Either Lin Ling or Wanyan Bupo would die. Therefore, it was normal for Wanyan Bupo to be filled with resentment. I believe you. However, you no longer have the chance. Then, Lin Ling lifted his foot and stomped heavily on Wanyan Bupo. Bang! Wanyan Bupo's upper body was crushed by Lin Ling's stomp. He could not be more dead. Lin Ling's methods were overbearing and ruthless. However, he knew that if he was not ruthless, he and the demon forest would be the unlucky ones. When they saw that Lin Ling had won, everyone knelt down on one knee. Their eyes were filled with admiration. Lin Ling was like a messenger that God had arranged for them. He had appeared out of nowhere to save them. This is not over yet. I believe that the scarier guy is on his way. However, compared to everyone's excitement, Lin Ling looked at the sky and said. Chapter 3795. Wanyan sure had arrived. Don't worry, as long as you're united, that powerful being will still be very wary of you. Yes. However, Lin Ling smiled lightly and sat down cross-legged on the ground. Everyone nodded and silently waited for that powerful being to arrive. After all, what would come would come. Thus, they had to face that powerful being head-on. Wow, look! There are so many treasures here. Yes. At this moment, a member of the Stone God tribe exclaimed excitedly. Then, a large number of dwarves rushed out with countless treasures. The person in the lead was actually Gu Adam. And those treasures were obviously the treasures collected by the Heaven-Crushing Alliance in these 100 years. Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Lord Totem, these are all for you. Yes. However, to Lin Ling's surprise, those dwarves threw all the treasures in front of Lin Ling. Moreover, Gu Adam said shyly, Lord Totem, can I exchange them for some wine? Yes. Lin Ling was instantly speechless. These guys really loved wine as if it was their life. Because, if these treasures were placed in the final world, not to mention a few bottles of wine, it would probably be no problem to buy a few hundred wineries. This Lord Totem, could it be that you think it's too little? Yes. Seeing Lin Ling's silence, all the members of the Stone God tribe said nervously, Think it's too little? What a joke. Lin Ling felt like he had profited too much. It's enough, it's enough. Take it, this is the wine you wanted. Lin Ling hurriedly threw out a large number of wine bottles. He only kept a few for himself and threw out the rest. Lord Totem, you're too good. Yes. The members of the Stone God tribe were all jumping up and down happily. Tribe leader, why are you stealing my wine? If you do it again, I'll tell Lord Totem. Yes. Don't, this is yours. We're good brothers, don't spoil our relationship over such a small matter. Yes. One had to admit that these members of the Stone God tribe were very simple and honest. Sometimes they were very dignified and sometimes they were like children. Lord Envoy. Yes. The people of the Wood God race were obviously not interested in those treasures. On the contrary, all the women were looking at Lin Ling with worship. This made Lin Ling feel somewhat embarrassed. Don't look at me like that. I'm thin-skinned. Lin Ling sighed. If the members of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance were here, they would definitely be cursing and swearing in fury. Although Lin Ling wasn't a shameless person, his skin was definitely not thin. Lord Envoy, after this matter is over, I wonder what your plans are. Beside Lin Ling, Her Majesty the Queen used with spirit energy to continuously heal Lin Ling. It had to be said that the feeling of treatment made Lin Ling very satisfied. I'm leaving looking for my wife. While enjoying the treatment, Lin Ling also smiled casually. Hearing this, Her Majesty the Queen's face darkened, as did Saint Na and the others. Saint Na finally couldn't help but say, "Lord Envoy, why don't you stay? We'll serve you." Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled bitterly. It seemed like he was a little tempted. Seeing this, the eyes of Her Majesty the Queen and the others all lit up. However, soon after, Lin Ling also said firmly, "Sorry, I still have to look for my wife. I want to bring her home." Of course, he knew that if he stayed in the demonic forest with his identity, he could have anything he wanted. Moreover, he would have countless beautiful women accompanying him every day. However, he had to make a promise first. No matter what kind of paradise this place was, or what kind of dragon's lair and tiger's den it was outside, he, Lin Ling, would still choose the dragon's lair and tiger's den in the end. Lord Envoy's wife should be a very happy woman. Hearing Lin Ling's determined voice, Her Majesty the Queen suddenly felt a little envious. Her beautiful face also became even dimmer. Meanwhile, Lin Ling could also sense her emotions. He rubbed his nose. At this time, it was naturally better to remain silent. "Lin Ling, there's a fruit of kindness among these treasures." At this moment, the giant ghost suddenly said. Its gaze was also fixed on a wooden box among the treasures. Lin Ling was immediately overjoyed. Fruit of kindness, fruit of fortune, and fruit of fate. With these three fruits, he could refine the flame of the human monarch. And if the flame of the human monarch was also fused into his talent, that kind of strength was simply unimaginable. Immediately, Lin Ling followed the giant ghost's instructions and found a wooden box. However, just as he was about to open it, the giant ghost floated away. At the same time, it said solemnly, "Fruit of kindness. If one does more evil than good, they will definitely be injured by the fruit of kindness." The giant ghost clearly had more evil tendencies. That was why it avoided it. It was afraid of the power of kindness. Doing more evil than good? Lin Ling pondered over the giant ghost's words. However, he hesitated. To be honest, he didn't seem to have done any good deeds in his life. It seemed that he had done quite a lot of evil deeds. This meant that he couldn't open the wooden box. He could not help but look at Her Majesty the Queen. Her Majesty the Queen was a wood spirit and was pure and flawless. She should be able to open the wooden box. Her Majesty the Queen seemed to know what Lin Ling was thinking. She immediately smiled and said kindly, "Lord Messenger, I can open it for you. However, I feel that Lord Messenger can actually open it yourself. That's because I believe in Lord Messenger." Lin Ling curled his lips. Even he didn't believe that he was a good person. However, he decided to give it a try. At most, he would suffer some injuries. Staring at the wooden box in his hand, he discovered that the wooden box looked very ordinary. However, Lin Ling knew that it was definitely made from a rare tree. Following that, Lin Ling gently opened it. However, what surprised Lin Ling was that the fruit lying in the wooden box looked very ordinary. It didn't even emit any light or power. If it was thrown into the market, Lin Ling would definitely think that it was an apple. As for the power of kindness, Lin Ling did not sense it at all. Looking at the people around him, they also did not feel anything. On the contrary, the giant ghost floated further and further away. As for the three-headed evil spirit in the distance, it let out a low growl. It seemed that it was very afraid of the fruit. This also made Lin Ling stunned. If the giant ghost and the others were afraid of the fruit, then the fruit did indeed have such power. Could it be that I'm more kind than evil? He remembered that he had killed countless people in this life. Perhaps you've saved even more people. Beside him, Her Majesty the Queen suddenly said playfully. Her limpid eyes were filled with curiosity towards Lin Ling. Lin Ling shook his head speechlessly. Then he put away the wooden box. No matter what, it was enough that the fruit did not affect him. Just as he put away the wooden box, the aura of death finally surged over from afar. Looking over, the wind and clouds rolled and the aura of death filled the sky. More than a dozen ferocious dragon bones, carrying a huge bronze coffin, appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Wanyan Shijing, the second strongest leader of the place of eternal rest, had finally arrived. He's here. Everyone felt as if a great enemy was approaching, and their auras were completely released. At this moment, the entire demonic forest shook. Countless trees, mountains, and other things seemed to have come alive. They formed a powerful force field, blocking the arrival of the strong man. Bang bang bang. The huge coffin kept hitting the sky. However, it was as if there was a membrane in the sky that blocked it. Chapter 3796. They arrived at the Guan mountain range. If Wanyan Bupo was 100,000 years old corpse, then this person must be a million-year-old corpse. He was definitely one of the best among the martial gods. Who is Lin Ling? A dignified voice drifted out from his mouth. Your father, me. Lin Ling also immediately stood up. In his heart, he was also surprised by the strength of that expert. However, he was also glad that the combined strength of the three great clans was actually able to block that person. Otherwise, he, Lin Ling, could only escape. Sure enough, if these three clans joined forces, the entire demon forest would be their world. 100 years ago, if it weren't for the fact that they weren't united, they would have been defeated by the Heaven-Crushing Alliance one by one. The Heaven-Crushing Alliance wouldn't have been able to do anything to them. Are you the Lin Ling who killed my son? The dignified man looked coldly at Lin Ling. He already knew everything through Wanyan Bupo. He hated Lin Ling this junior to the bone. This was because not only had Lin Ling destroyed his painstaking efforts, he had even uprooted his foundation. After all, this was a foundation that he had spent 100 years to establish. That's right, it's your father. If you have something to say, then say it. If not, then scram. Lin Ling didn't give him any face either. They were all mortal enemies, so there was no need to talk nonsense. Lin Ling, you've got guts. I'll remember you. If you have the ability, hide in the demon forest for the rest of your life. That Wanyan Epics clearly knew that he could not touch Lin Ling at the moment. Where I go is none of your business. If you don't like it, then come and kill me. Also, your son was crushed by my foot. If you don't like it, then come and kill me. Lin Ling laughed in an overbearing manner. Good job. Wanyan Meisher was so angry that he laughed. It had been a long time since he had seen such an arrogant junior. He once again attacked the sky, but there was still no effect. Seeing this, Lin Ling's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, he remembered the fruit of good he received earlier and decided to give it a try. He opened the wooden box and took it out. Then, he opened it and an invisible wave immediately floated out. Fruit of good. Wanyan Shiji immediately felt uncomfortable. Although with his strength, he was not very afraid of the good fruit. However, that formless fluctuation made him feel uncomfortable. Keep stomping. If you have the ability, continue to stomp. If you have the ability, stomp for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing that Wanyan Junhui was clearly afraid, Lin Ling immediately sneered. He didn't believe that if this continued, who would be able to outlast the other. When Wanyan Shi saw that even an ant was so arrogant, he was so angry that he exploded. However, he could not break through that barrier. Instead, he felt extremely uncomfortable staying here. If you have the ability, don't leave. If you scram, then you are my grandson. Lin Ling added insult to injury. Ah! Wanyan Epic roared. It was even more chaotic. The murderer of his son was right in front of him, yet he couldn't kill him. Instead, he had to watch the other party be arrogant. Remember, I will take revenge for what happened today. Not daring to stay any longer, Wanyan Shiji could only leave dejectedly. In the sky, the roiling aura of death started to recede. In the end, a clear blue sky appeared. The demonic forest that had been drowned by the aura of death for 100 years finally regained its tranquility. Everyone looked up at the sky, and an excited smile finally appeared on their faces. Of course, when they looked at the young man in the crowd, the reverence on their faces became even more pronounced. That young man was the totem of the demonic forest, their envoy. Even after millions of years, this ancient demonic forest would still be a legend. He was Lin Ling. 3 days later, at the edge of the demonic forest, a young man carrying a large sword and a sword lock was slowly advancing with a tall bodyguard. And he was Lin Ling. After dealing with the demonic forest, Lin Ling also left without stopping. To him, after destroying the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, he had the face to tell Huan, brother, you can leave now. I will protect your home for you. As he advanced through the dense forest, Lin Ling was undoubtedly in a very good mood. This was because not only had his strength greatly increased, but he had also obtained a large number of treasures. Among them, the Heaven-Crushing Alliance had left behind many treasures. And the three tribes had also gifted many treasures to Lin Ling. It could be said that the current Lin Ling could be considered half a tycoon. Moreover, for a very long time, Lin Ling would not lack the resources he needed to break through. Longyang has the full support of the new heavenly court, but I, Lin Ling, am not weak either. Right now in the final world, the news of my battle with her seems to have spread like wildfire. Could it be that martial god Wen Tian is afraid that I will go back on my word, so he deliberately spread the news? Lin Ling said as he walked, but he immediately became certain. This was because martial god Wen Tian was also wary of Lin Ling's backer, so he spread the news to shut the mouths of those powerful beings. When Lin Ling lost, those powerful beings would not dare to help Lin Ling so easily. Regarding this, Lin Ling sneered coldly. Martial god Wen Tian was underestimating Lin Ling too much. Would he, Lin Ling, lose for sure? Next is the ancient Yuan mountain range. However, if you encounter that Wanyan Shirxia with your strength, it will be very difficult to fight him. At this moment, the giant ghost beside him suddenly said. Lin Ling instantly nodded. Wanyan Shirxia was undoubtedly a powerful figure. If they encountered him, Lin Ling only had 50% confidence that he would be able to retreat. Looks like I have to quickly refine this human king's flame. After that, Lin Ling did not think too much about it. Although he was no match for Wanyan Meiji, if he really encountered him, he could just give up on the Platinum Evil Ghost and use the Platinum Evil Ghost to delay him and escape. That shouldn't be too difficult. The few of them chatted as they walked, and finally successfully walked out of the demonic forest. On top of a cliff, Lin Ling looked into the distance. There was an endless grassland there, and occasionally there were a few mountains sitting there. They were ancient and grand, like giants overlooking the entire grassland. Lin Ling could not help but gasp. Judging from the surging aura, this should be the ancient Yuan mountain range. Looking at the sky again, there was light enveloping the earth as if there was a scorching sun. However, Lin Ling knew that this was the bottom of the Kai Yuan River. He could even imagine that the Kai Yuan River was actually a universal void, but it had failed to grow, so it had become a continent with an inner universe. Senior sister, you are big brother. The dragon tribe has not completed a single mission. I hope we can find the information we need in the ancient Yuan mountain range. Shaking his head, Lin Ling jumped down from the cliff. Not long after, the earth rumbled, and Lin Ling appeared on the grassland at the bottom of the cliff. Next, he set off on his journey again. A gust of fresh air rushed to his face, making Lin Ling feel relaxed and happy. He took out the map, checked the direction, and immediately continued to move forward. The vast grassland was full of green grass that was half a man's height. Two figures like lone rangers slowly disappeared into the distance. After walking for 2 hours, suddenly, the sound of fighting came from afar, which made Lin Ling frown slightly. Without hesitation, he immediately ran in the direction of the sound. Under a grassy hill, more than 10 people were fighting. Their strength was sparse, and many of them were at the Sage realm, and only 2 of them were at the Martial Ancestor realm. Chapter 3797. One of their own. Beside her, a middle-aged man was treating her injuries. On the other side, those people were eyeing them covetously, laughing as they attacked. Hehe, Li Hongwang, why don't I see you being arrogant? Where's your boss? Get him over here. Today all of you will die here. I've said it before, your mind belongs to the Red Alliance. The person who attacked was not in a hurry to kill. It was as if he was toying with a mouse. On the other hand, the injured party was being supported by the early martial progenitor realm old man. It was obvious that he would not be able to hold on for much longer. Young Master Tian, you're despicable. How dare you use poison? As for the middle-aged man who was healing people, he couldn't help but let out an angry roar. If it wasn't for the fact that he needed to expel the poison, he would have already charged forward. There's no need to talk about morality with trash like you from the Godslayer Alliance. That's because we've already given you guys a chance to scram. However, you guys went back on your word and refused to leave. In that case, why should we be gentlemen? On the other side, a fair-skinned young master said with a smile. He was riding on a person with a chain around his neck, just like a dog. However, everyone knew that this person was on the middle-aged man's side and was being treated like a dog. Young Master Tian, can you be any more shameless? We were the ones who found the mineral vein first, and a few people even died during the mining. You came and snatched it from us and you didn't even give us anything. Now you have the nerve to say that we're treacherous?" The middle-aged man's eyes turned red. "I gave you face but you don't want it. You actually think you're in the right to betray me? Capture them all and make them slaves just like my dogs." Hearing this, young master by Mion finally shouted coldly. The experts beside him unleashed their auras and attacked one after another. "Li Hongwang, take them away. I can't stop so many people. Let one of them go." At this moment, the old man in charge of blocking them shouted anxiously, "Divine Elder, I'm not leaving. When has our God Slayer Alliance ever abandoned our brothers? Moreover, they came prepared. I'm afraid their escape route has been sealed." That middle-aged man gritted his teeth and swallowed it into his stomach. However, if Lin Ling was here, he would definitely recognize this middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was none other than Li Hongwang, who had recommended Lin Ling to the God-Slaying Alliance, and his wife Ho Yenru. Alas! Hearing this, the old man let out a long sigh. However, right at this moment, a fierce roar drifted over from afar. Its aura was vast and mighty, and it actually blew away all the grass on the grassland. Whoosh! Whoosh! Those grasses all flew up and floated in the sky like sharp arrows, shooting out with the person who came. "Young Master Tian, can you be any more despicable? You've even ambushed an expert." Sensing the terrifying aura behind them, Li Hongwang and the others were enraged once again. They were all prepared to fight to the death. They didn't expect the Red Alliance to not only use poison, but also set up an ambush to block their escape route. They were trying to drive them to their deaths. However, the experts on the other side were stunned because they weren't the ones who had called them over. "Junziamo, is he from your academy?" "No, judging from his aura he's very strong. I'm afraid he's an expert from the third hall." If he's an expert from the third hall, then he definitely has nothing to do with the Godslayer Alliance. After all, only the two leaders of the Godslayer Alliance are from the academy. They've been away for a long time, so it's impossible for them to come back. Therefore, he's one of us. Everyone started to analyze the situation and then burst into laughter. Some of them even took out wine and drank, waiting for the expert to kill Li Hongwang and the others. Wow, what a powerful move. The grasses have turned into arrows. It seems like he possesses a powerful ancestor's power. If he landed in the 10,000 realms, he could easily destroy a realm. Nonsense, how can we compare to a martial ancestor from the third hall? I reckon that this move will kill half of Li Hongwang and the others. More than half. I'm afraid they'll all die. They were even admiring the move. However, would the person who had come be on their side? The answer was obviously no. Whoosh! 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 Half of the people were killed in an instant. They could not even utter a cry of pain. "Expert, you've killed the wrong people. We're on the same side. We're on the same side." The guy called Young Master Tian did not care about his own life. He pointed at the red cloth tied to his shoulder, which seemed to be the symbol of the Red Alliance. However, if the martial ancestor had not saved him at the last moment, he would have been killed by the arrows. This was because a new wave of grass arrows had arrived and killed another dozen people before finally disappearing. A figure in a blue and white robe descended from the sky, shocking the crowd. "Senior, you've killed the wrong people. We're on the same side," the martial ancestor standing beside young Master Tian said. His heart was filled with anger, but he did not dare to show it. That being said, he pointed at the red cloth tied to his shoulder as he spoke, indicating that he was from the Red Alliance. He even planned to reprimand the person after he admitted it. He had never seen such a stupid person who could not differentiate between friend and foe. As for whether the person was related to the God Extermination Alliance, he did not think it was possible. The God Extermination Alliance was famous in the 9 prefectures. However, they were well aware of how many experts they had. Although the God Extermination Alliance had martial ancestor experts, their talents were all below the 5th grade. They were as weak as dogs. They were not strong enough to face the alliance formed by the Ultimate World's experts. Whoosh! However, while that expert was still explaining, a sword slashed down. That martial ancestor expert was unable to say anything because his neck had been slashed open. His eyes were wide open. He even pointed at his right arm, indicating that he was from the Red Alliance. Why did you kill him? Plop! His head finally fell off. He died with his eyes wide open. At this moment the people of the Red Alliance trembled. Young Master Tion's expression changed drastically as he looked at the person who had just arrived. He looked at him from head to toe, but he had never seen the blue-robed young man before. He's so powerful. He killed Hichong Tion with a single slash. He was a middle-stage martial ancestor expert. Just now, he alone blocked Li Hongwang and me. As for the people of the God Extermination Alliance, the old man called Divine Elder said seriously. He's an expert. I don't know if he's a friend or foe. Although he helped us, some experts are eccentric. They will attack us if they don't like us. Therefore, no one can guarantee that he won't kill us. Li Hongwang quietly transmitted his voiceover, reminding everyone to be careful. They must not offend this powerhouse. Hearing this, the people of the God Extermination Alliance nodded solemnly. At this moment, the person who had just arrived slowly turned his head and looked at Li Hongwang. He was wearing a blue robe that was as clean as the clouds in the sky. He had delicate features and an excited smile appeared on his face. Chapter 3798. It was the fourth leader, Lin Ling. As for the Divine Elder and the rest, they had joined the Godslayer Alliance later, so they didn't recognize him. However, they were shocked by Li Hongwang's rude behavior. Was Li Hongwang stupid? How could he point at someone like that? Was he looking for death? However, this wasn't the end. Li Hongwang shouted even more agitatedly, "Fuck! Fuck! Li Hongwang, you fuck!" Seeing this, the Divine Elder and the rest's expressions changed. This guy actually dared to speak? Their hearts immediately turned to ashes. They were already prepared to welcome the expert's slaughter. However, what they expected didn't happen. Instead, the expert smiled. His smile was extremely beautiful. He said indifferently, "Yes, I'm here. What's going on?" It seems like this expert knows Li Hongwang. The Divine Elder and the rest were dumbfounded. Subordinate Li Hongwang greets leader Lin Ling. Fuck. Finally, Li Hongwang opened his mouth. He was so agitated that tears flowed out of his eyes. His words shocked the Divine Elder and the rest. However, a mythical name finally appeared in their minds. The fourth leader of the Godslayer Alliance, Lin Ling. As for this leader, those who had joined the Godslayer Alliance later had never seen him before. However, they had all heard of his name. The God-slaying formation whose name shook the 9 prefectures. There were even many hot-blooded youths from the 9 prefectures who had come to follow the fourth leader, Lin Ling. And now they finally saw this legendary figure? Plop! Everyone knelt down on one knee. They were only curious and in awe of this legendary figure that they had only heard of but never seen. Get up. Fuck. Lin Ling smiled and walked forward slowly. Then, he came to Li Hongwang's side and helped him up. He thumped the latter's chest and said, "Long time no see." Fuck. Haha. Fuck. Li Hongwang was a little agitated. Lin Ling was actually so familiar with him in front of the Divine Elder and the rest. This gave him a lot of face. He touched his nose and said, "I heard that you went to the final world and I haven't seen you since." Fuck. Yes, I was delayed by something. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. After all, Li Hongwang was the first person who had recommended Lin Ling to the Godslayer Alliance. Thus, Lin Ling and Li Hongwang had a pretty good relationship. After that, Lin Ling looked at Ho Yenru. At this moment, Ho Yenru's eyes were slightly closed, and her face was pale. It was obvious that she had been poisoned. However, this bit of poison was really not enough for Lin Ling. He could even devour the death aura of the demon forest. What more this poison? A devil ghost jellyfish floated out and appeared behind Ho Yenru, and began to absorb the poison. A moment later, Ho Yenru opened her eyes. When she saw Lin Ling, she couldn't help but smile excitedly. When Li Hongwang saw that his wife had recovered, he laughed 3 times and immediately helped his wife up. As for the Divine Elder and the rest, they were all dumbfounded. The fourth leader was so powerful. Not only did he easily kill the members of the Red Alliance, but he also saved Ho Yenru. He was much more powerful than they had imagined. When they had first joined the Godslayer Alliance, They knew that Lin Ling wasn't strong at that time. However, they believed that Lin Ling would soar into the sky in one go. Indeed, reality didn't disappoint them. Lin Ling, what's your current cultivation level? Ho Yenru suddenly asked. 4th level martial ancestor. Lin Ling didn't hide anything from them. Sizzle. Ho Yenru and her husband sucked in a breath of cold air and said, I remember that your cultivation level was lower than ours. Now we haven't reached the martial ancestor realm, but you've reached the 4th level martial ancestor realm. You're just as abnormal as Sakura and the rest. Hearing this, Lin Ling became excited and asked, Is my big brother here? He's here. Your big brother Wangu Wuji and the rest are all here. Li Hongwang was the first to speak. His body suddenly trembled because if Sakura and the others knew that Lin Ling had come, who knows how excited they would be. One had to know that he had often heard Di Shirtian's nagging, and the latter missed his second brother very much. That's great. Lin Ling licked his lips. He had finally found his big brother and the rest. Hey, are you guys done talking? However, a voice interrupted Lin Ling and the rest's conversation. The guy called Young Master Tian pointed at Lin Ling and spoke. The members of the God Slayer Alliance were stunned. Was this guy deaf? Didn't he hear that the 4th leader of the God Slayer Alliance was here? Or was he an idiot? Or did he think that the God Slayer Alliance was weak and didn't have any experts? No matter what, Li Hongwang and the rest knew that the members of the Red Alliance were out of luck. Among the 4 leaders, the one with the most guts was Lin Ling. Since you're not one of us, you're an enemy. I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and become my slave, and I'll spare your life. Young Master Tian pointed at Lin Ling and spoke arrogantly. Become your slave? Lin Ling couldn't help but laugh. A guy in the Sage Realm actually dared to speak like this? That's right. Let me tell you, we're members of the Red Alliance. Behind us are the experts of the final world. If you don't become my leader, Young Master Tian snorted coldly twice. Lin Ling nodded his head and said, Sure. If you want me to become your slave, you can ask it. If it agrees, I'll become your slave. After speaking, Lin Ling's heart shook. Soon after, a figure flew out from the distant forest. It was like a small giant as it charged towards Young Master Tian and the rest. It was the Platinum Evil Spirit. Lin Ling didn't even look at it. Instead, he asked Li Hongwang and the rest about Sakura and the rest. As for Young Master Tian's side, after a few people died, he finally knew what kind of terrifying existence he had provoked. Oh my god, what is this thing? It actually eats people. So scary. It's looking at me and laughing. It's going to eat me. No, I don't want to be eaten like a spicy strip. Spare me. Young Master Tian and the rest all knelt down and ran towards Lin Ling. Li Hongwang and the rest witnessed this scene with their own eyes and were obviously frightened. They never expected that Lin Ling would bring such a powerful bodyguard. You don't want me to be your slave anymore? However, Lin Ling didn't even look at them. No, ancestor. Hurry up and save me. It's pulling my leg. Young Master Tian screamed the loudest. He was so scared that his snot was flowing out as he crawled towards Lin Ling. Lin Ling sneered. He didn't kill Young Master Tian because he had a lot of things that he wanted to know from him. Be my dog. Lin Ling said indifferently. I've always been the one riding the slaves. Young Master Tian opened his mouth wide. Remember, it's to be a dog. You're not qualified to be my slave. However, I don't like to force people. Do you want to be a spicy strip or a dog? It's up to you. Lin Ling snorted in disdain. Be a dog, be a dog. Chapter 3799. Sans. Li Hongwang and the others were stunned. As long as the members of the God Slayer Alliance were captured by Young Master Tian, their fate would be to become dogs and be ridden by Young Master Tian. But now, Lin Ling had returned the favor by turning them into dogs. Li Hongwang and the others immediately felt relieved. The others want to make spicy strips? Or do you want to be a dog? Let me remind you that I need as many dogs as there are people here. The extra dogs will be killed. Lin Ling opened his mouth again. The faces of the Red Alliance members changed drastically. They hurriedly crawled over, fighting to be first. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to be Lin Ling's dogs. How shameful. Even dogs want to sit on it. Li Hongwang felt as if he had released half of the pent-up anger he had suffered all these years. He strode forward and ruthlessly kicked young Master Tian's butt. Young Master Tian, you didn't expect this day to come, did you? You're just a male dog. Fuck, you dared to poison my wife. When we get back, I'll castrate you. After saying that, he kicked young Master Tian's butt hard. Young Master Tian howled in pain, but he didn't dare to resist. Each person chooses a dog. Let's go and meet my big brother. Lin Ling looked into the distance and couldn't help but touch his nose. He and Sakura hadn't seen each other for many years. I wonder what level Big Brother has reached now. As for the Divine Elder and the others, they were all dumbfounded. After meeting the fourth leader of the God-Slayer Alliance today, he really lived up to his reputation. After a long time, numerous ancient mountains appeared before them. Numerous walls that towered into the clouds stood before the mountains, and there were numerous houses within the walls. It seemed like a small fortress. Staring into the distance, Lin Ling sensed boundary power on those walls. Come to think of it, although those walls couldn't block the attacks of the strong, they had the function of warning. On a closer look, there was a huge moat outside the walls, separating the fortress from the outside world. If one did not leave the door open, it would be very difficult to sneak into the fortress. As for flying in, it was not impossible, but the result would be seen clearly by the people in the fortress. Lin Ling, we're here. At this moment, Li Hongwang said with a smile, this fortress has been here for a few years. I didn't expect Big Brother to take care of it so well. Lin Ling could not help but nod. That's right. When we first came here, there was only grass and many snakes. Later, with everyone's hard work, we slowly opened up the wasteland and gradually made it suitable for living. Look at the 2 mountains around us. They're also ours. These 3 mountains are 3 huge mineral veins that specialize in producing emperor crystals. We were just about to leave when we discovered this vein, so we set up camp here. After all, no one wanted to miss out on so many emperor crystals. Li Hongwang continued. Emperor crystal was a necessary item for cultivation, so no one would miss it. It was no wonder that Sakura and the others had been staying here all this time. Lin Ling was probably more aware of the importance of imperial crystals than anyone else. Presently, he possessed quite a few imperial crystals and various treasures, but Lin Ling was clearly aware that they were only sufficient for him to break through once. The ancient forest has a lot of mineral veins. Looks like it's true. In this ancient prairie, there are probably many powerful forces that have occupied numerous mineral veins. Lin Ling also looked into the distance. He now knew why so many people had stayed in the ancient mountains. That's right. This is a place to make a fortune. Of course, it's also a place to die in a foreign land. Many prospectors have gathered in this prairie, so it's also very chaotic. Li Hongwang sighed. If it weren't for the unity of the God-Slayer Alliance, they would have died in a foreign land by themselves. While they were talking, suddenly, the sound of a bronze bell came from the huge fortress in front of them. It was loud and clear, and it spread for thousands of miles. Obviously, Lin Ling and the others had touched some taboo, which caused the fortress to be on alert. Li Hongwang suddenly slapped his forehead. Damn, I forgot to turn off those enchantments. As the people of the fortress, they naturally had a way to enter and exit. It was just that he had been chatting with Lin Ling and had forgotten to do so. Looking at the fortress again, it was as if they were facing a great enemy. All the workers and the experts of the God-Slayer Alliance had stopped their work and rushed to the wall, forming a sharp aura. In the middle of the wall, 2 figures were like the leaders of a group of dragons, indifferently looking into the distance. They touched the enchantment taboo. It should be an enemy. I just don't know which alliance they are from. Could it be the Red Alliance? Not could it be, it's the Red Alliance. Do you see those people riding on people? Isn't that young Master Tian's style? Damn, this young Master Tian is not strong, but he is arrogant. If it weren't for the Red Alliance, I would have already taught him a lesson. How dare he bully us? The 2 of them continued to talk, and the more they talked, the angrier they became. One of them stopped talking nonsense and jumped out, forming a rolling force in midair. Finally, it turned into a palm and slammed toward the person who came. Menglu, don't kill him. Otherwise, the Red Alliance will find an excuse to attack us again. On the wall, the other person also reminded him. Okay. The person who attacked replied, getting closer and closer to Lin Ling and the others. What the hell? Li Hongwang and the others narrowed their eyes. Wasn't that guy Meng Lu? Why did he suddenly go crazy and attack them? Hey Meng Lu, it's us. Li Hongwang hurriedly shouted. It's you. Meng Lu, who was in midair, was stunned. He couldn't help but curse, what the hell are you doing? How dare you copy young Master Tian and ride people? As he said that, he realized that his attack was getting closer and closer to Li Hongwang and the others. Oh no, hurry up and dodge. I can't stop in time. He couldn't help but shout anxiously. Damn! Li Hongwang and the others cursed and immediately prepared to scatter. However, at this moment, Lin Ling smiled and leaped into the sky like a meteor. His fist was also thrown out in a clean and efficient manner. Who is this guy? On the other side, Meng Lu couldn't help but open his mouth wide. In his opinion, was that person looking for death? He naturally knew the strength of the experts in the Godslayer Alliance. There were very few people who could block his palm, so he didn't think that person was his opponent. However, things were beyond his imagination, and also beyond the imagination of the people in Shan Fortress. In the sky, Lin Ling's fists collided. That huge palm was mixed with billowing realm essence, but it was blocked by the fist. The fist and palm were frantically burning, causing a gust of wind and making the grass in the prairie surge like waves. But as time passed, the palm filled with realm essence finally began to dissipate. Meng Lu's palm was obviously easily broken by Lin Ling. An expert. On the other side, Meng Lu's eyes lit up. As for the people in Shan Fortress, their faces were also solemn. The man standing at the highest point of the city wall stared at the newcomer. His face was solemn at first, but it gradually turned into disbelief and finally into surprise. Chapter 3800. Brothers Reunited. Second brother. The man finally roared. His body trembled with excitement and tears flowed out of his eyes. This caused everyone to be stunned. However, Meng Lu, who was in the sky, was also stunned. Then he laughed crazily. Lin Ling, is that you? Yes, I'm here. In the sky, the young man in the blue robe smiled as if he was a king looking down on everyone. Haha. Meng Lu laughed loudly and immediately rushed toward Lin Ling. Before he got close, he opened his arms wide and hugged Lin Ling. What are you doing here? After hugging Lin Ling, Meng Lu laughed happily and excitedly. Because he and Lin Ling had both come from Qing province. The years of battle, the brotherhood they shared, was something that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Meng Lu, fucking get out of my way. However, behind Meng Lu, a figure shot out like a cannonball and suddenly knocked Meng Lu. Then, he occupied Meng Lu's position and suddenly hugged Lin Ling. Haha, second brother, you're here. I'm not dreaming, am I? The person who came was Sakura. In the distance, Meng Lu flew back with a gloomy face. Sakura, do you have to be so excited? Next, the three of them floated in the sky and looked at each other. Then they laughed at the same time. The three brothers had come from Qingzhou. Now, each of them was an independent figure. In Qingzhou or even Jiuzhou, they were extremely strong. Especially Lin Ling. He had made a name for himself in the final world. We're finally reunited. Li Hongwang, Ho Yenru, and the others looked at Lin Ling and laughed. They laughed so happily that their eyes were moist. Although they already knew that Sakura and the rest would be very excited about Lin Ling's arrival. But knowing was one thing. After seeing it with their own eyes, they were undoubtedly excited. Who is this? On the contrary, countless people on Shamfortress's side were surprised. In their impression, Sakura was an arrogant and unruly person. He was indifferent to life and death and would fight if he didn't accept it. He gave off an extremely dignified feeling. Especially after the arrival of the people from the other alliances, the pressure on Shan Fortress increased greatly, causing Di Shirtian's face to be black all the time. Therefore, this was the first time many people saw Di Shirtian laughing so heartily. It's Lin Ling. It's Lin Ling. However, the elders of the God-Slayer Alliance recognized Lin Ling, and all of them burst into laughter. Who is Lin Ling? Some people were doubtful. Little Melon, you've just joined the God-Slayer Alliance not long ago. Naturally, you don't know Lin Ling's name. Let me tell you, Lord Lin Ling is the leader who made the God-Slayer Alliance famous throughout the 9 prefectures. He's also the 4th leader of our God-Slayer Alliance. His status is even higher than Sakura and the others. Lin Ling. I've heard of him. Is he Lin Ling? Wow, I've finally met the 4th leader of the God-Slayer Alliance. However, he looks very amiable. He's not as ferocious as Lord Sakura. That's only for our own people. Enemies? In the rumors of the 9 prefectures, Lin Ling is the most troublesome and hateful person in our God-Slayer Alliance. Sounds of discussion could be heard from the fortress. Second brother, come. After Sakura talked with Lin Ling and the others, he immediately flew toward Shan Fortress with Lin Ling. After a while, the 3 of them stood on the city wall and looked down at the people below. Lin Ling saw that there were about 1,000 people in Shan Fortress. Their overall strength wasn't very strong. There were about 100 people in the martial ancestor realm, but their talents were very ordinary. Of course, compared to the God-Slayer Alliance, there were many more martial ancestor realm experts. As for the others, most of them were in the Sage realm. This made Lin Ling feel very strange. How could a Sage realm expert enter the Kaiyuan River? How could Lin Ling not know? He had seen many experts in the final world, so he felt that the people here were very weak. However, the Kaiyuan River was in the universal void. Not only did people from the final world come here, but many people from the 9 prefectures also came. However, the arrival of martial artists from the 9 prefectures meant that the danger was greater. Why are you in a daze? Quickly greet the leader. Sakura couldn't help but roar when he saw the people blinking. The people immediately knelt down on one knee and shouted in unison, "Greetings to leader Lin Ling." It could be seen that many of the newcomers were unfamiliar with the leader they were meeting for the first time. On the contrary, Sakura had been leading them all this time and had left a majestic shadow in their hearts. Rise. Lin Ling didn't mind and smiled. Although many of them were unfamiliar faces, they were still members of the God-Slayer Alliance. Therefore, he also treated them as his own people. After hearing Lin Ling's words, the people stood up. Come, second brother. Sakura then led Lin Ling forward. At the foot of the huge mountain there was a row of houses. Although they were simple and crude, they were extremely clean. At the foot of the huge mountain there were several mines. Miners were coming in and out one after another. Their strength wasn't strong, and judging from their clothes, they didn't seem to be members of the God-Slayer Alliance. After a rough glance, Lin Ling followed Sakura into a large hall. This was obviously a meeting hall. Men, bring some wine and dishes. After entering, Sakura immediately said majestically, Yes, my lord. Immediately, a sound came from outside and Sakura directly sat down. Sitting with a golden blade, he displayed even more power. Seeing this, Lin Ling couldn't help but tease, Big brother. You're becoming more and more majestic. Sai, do you think I want to? It's all young Monster Master and Majin Tianzi's fault. They said that everyone would leave together, but they left halfway, leaving us with half of the God-Slayer Alliance. As we were walking, we came across this mineral vein. At that time, we couldn't leave or stay. In the end, we made up our minds and set up camp here to mine. However, mining mineral veins is easier said than done. We have to protect them, face the demon snakes, and face the bandits outside. It's like being a father and a mother. When someone came in with wine and shouted, Sakura took a sip and said helplessly, So it's better to be alone. When I was with you, I was free and unrestrained. If I didn't like the look of it, I would do it. If I couldn't win, I would run. I didn't have to drag my family down like now. Yes. Sigh. Menglu also sighed softly. Lin Ling immediately saw that it was extremely difficult for Big Brother and the others to mine. However, they couldn't bear to give up the Emperor Crystal Mine, so they had to bite the bullet. Moreover, young Monster Master and the others probably didn't know about this. Otherwise, they would have come back to help. Let's not talk about this. Come, let's drink. Next, Sakura poured Lin Ling a full cup of wine and asked Lin Ling how he had spent all these years. Lin Ling also cut to the chase. Haha, second brother. You've reached the level 4 martial ancestor realm. The final world? I heard that young Monster Master and the others left the Kaiyuan River in a hurry because they were afraid that they would be late. Chapter 3801. Sparring. Lin Ling looked at Di Shirtian's calm eyes. He immediately knew that although Di Shirtian had lost some freedom over the years, his temperament had become more stable. He knew how to prioritize the overall situation. This experience was undoubtedly good for his big brother. One must know that Di Shirtian's temperament was similar to Lin Ling's. They were both indifferent to life and death. If they were unhappy, they would do it. However, although Lin Ling was impulsive, he wouldn't lose his mind. He might seem reckless in many things, but he was actually meticulous. Di Shirtian, on the other hand, was completely one-track minded. Grandpa, you and the rest are all right. Yes. After drinking a few cups with Lin Ling, Sakura said with a smile. But after he finished speaking, he immediately became speechless again. I think this question was asked in vain. Of course not. Of course you're asking for nothing. Among us, Lin Ling is the most capable. With Lin Ling watching them from the outside, how could anything happen to them? Menglu immediately said. In Menglu's heart, Lin Ling's ability was superb. Many storms and waves were blocked by Lin Ling alone. Therefore, he believed that as long as Lin Ling was there, the others would definitely be fine. Sometimes he was also curious about Lin Ling. Because Lin Ling looked very ordinary, but he could always do things that they couldn't do. Lin Ling naturally nodded. Yu Grandpa and the rest were definitely fine. If something happened to them, wouldn't Lin Ling fight with all his might? Next, he also told them about his encounter with young Demon Master and the rest. It's good that they're fine. However, this final world is really scary. With young Demon Master and the rest's strength, they can't survive. Through the conversation with Lin Ling, Di Shirtian and the rest were more or less familiar with the final world. In fact, there are many experts from the final world in this ancient Yuan mountain range. For example, the Red Alliance. Lin Ling said. They are also from the final world? Both of them were surprised. I only know that there are a lot of strong people in this alliance, but I didn't expect them to be from the final world. However, this Guyuan mountain range is very big, and there are a lot of mineral veins. Our place is just a small mineral vein, so there aren't many strong people. However, when we first came here, we went to another place and saw a lot of strong people there. I think they are the strong people of the final world. No wonder they can occupy those bigger mineral veins. Dreamflow also nodded. Fortunately, we're just a small mine. Otherwise, if a big faction took a fancy to us, I'm afraid we would have to leave immediately. In fact, this batch of ore veins was not small. It was enough to cultivate many experts. It was just that the ore veins in other places were even larger. By the way, I came to the Kaiyuan River this time to look for senior sister Yu. You've been here for many years. Have you heard any news about her? Lin Ling suddenly asked. Di Shirtian and Dreamflow looked at each other, then shook their heads and said, this place is too big, and there are a lot of strong people. If Anuera is here, she will definitely be in the area where the strong people are. However, we have never been close to that area. However, we can buy information and ask from others. That's good. Lin Ling nodded. But it doesn't matter. As long as she is in the ancient Yuan mountain range, I will definitely find her. Then he said, have you heard of the dragon race? Di Shirtian and the rest shook their heads again. This made Lin Ling feel a little helpless. It seemed like it was harder to find Anuera and send a letter than he had imagined. At this moment, an excited voice came from outside the hall. Lin Ling, you're here. Then two figures rushed into the hall. They were Wangu Wuji and Yeshua. Wangu Wuji was a friend that Lin Ling had made in the flame state. After the quarrel with the Wangu family, he had followed Lin Ling and was able to get along well with Lin Ling. Hence they had a good relationship. As for Yeshua, she was the leader of the God Extermination Alliance, and she was also the disciple of Miao Shan. When the two of them saw Lin Ling, they laughed excitedly without any suspense. Lin Ling looked at them happily. After a short conversation, they sat down and started to eat and drink. Haha. Lin Ling, why are you here? Wangu Wuji was clearly still excited. After all, he had stayed in the flame state. After following Lin Ling, he had realized that the outside world was much more interesting and vast. Hence, he was still grateful to Lin Ling for bringing him out of the flame state. Lin Ling immediately told Wangu Wuji the reason for his visit. He wanted to let Wangu Wuji and the rest know that Lin Ling had come to the Kaiyuan River to look for someone. Don't worry, you will definitely find her. Wangu Wuji comforted. Then, he looked at Lin Ling and asked, have you reached the martial ancestor realm? Lin Ling didn't reply. Instead, he asked, didn't you reach the martial ancestor realm as well? Lin Ling had admitted that he had indeed reached the martial progenitor realm. I wonder how strong you are. Lin Ling, why don't you have a spar with me? Wangu Wuji asked excitedly. As soon as Wangu Wuji said that, everyone's battle intent surged. Since they had come out to explore the world together, they naturally wanted to see how strong they had become. Lin Ling could sense that they were all at the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Lin Ling wasn't afraid of them at all. However, Lin Ling was more interested in their relationship. He smiled and nodded his head. All right. Ha ha ha, second brother. Although they are polite to you on the surface, they want to surpass you in their hearts. However, don't worry, I am here. Let's see how arrogant they can be. When Sakura saw Lin Ling nodding his head, he became excited. Then, everyone walked out of the hall. When the people outside heard that the leaders were going to spar with each other, they stopped what they were doing and became excited. Although the fortress wasn't big, it was like a sparrow. It had all the internal organs. Some people were in charge of mining, some were in charge of guarding, and some were in charge of daily life. It was like a small city. Soon, a huge martial stage was built in the fortress. The martial stage was made of hard slag, and it could withstand the attacks of a martial ancestor realm expert. In order to prevent others from getting hurt, Yi Shui had even set up a large number of barriers. Of course, from Lin Ling's point of view, if he were to use his full strength, those barriers would be like paper. I will go first. The first person to leap up was Wangu Wuji. Wuji, Wuji! Cheers rang out from all around. It was obvious that Wangu Wuji held a high position in everyone's hearts. However, this was normal. After all, they had found 3 mines and Wangu Wuji was guarding one of them. Wuji, who are you going to challenge? An elder asked curiously, making everyone reveal smiles. They were incomparably expectant. Wangu Wuji's gaze landed on Lin Ling, and the others before it landed on Lin Ling. It is Lord Lin Ling. Chapter 3802. Fight Lin Ling. Of course, those were the thoughts of the newcomers and the miners. To the older generation, Lin Ling's reputation was much higher than young Master Yao and the others. Sakura, come up. However, Wangu Wuji's gaze quickly shifted to Indra. It's not Lord Lin Ling. What's going on? Everyone's jaws dropped. Lin Ling came here in a hurry and he hasn't even rested properly. If I beat him, it would be unfair. Wangu Wuji chuckled. Tisk, you're just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. However, Sakura didn't buy it. He knew that Wangu Wuji didn't have the confidence to challenge Lin Ling. Even though they had obtained great opportunities in the Kaiyuan River, they still didn't have the confidence to fight against Lin Ling. It was because Lin Ling was too important in their hearts. Wangu Wuji's face turned red when he heard Sakura's words. He then said, Sakura, do you dare to fight me or not? If you don't, just admit defeat. I won't make things difficult for you since we're brothers. Haha, if you want to be beaten up, I'll accompany you. Sakura instantly laughed out loud. He leaped up and landed heavily on the martial stage. Wangu Wuji, have we not fought enough? We all know what we're capable of. Old Emperor, you're right. Within 500 moves we'll be evenly matched. Within 1,000 moves, only heaven knows who will win. You'll be defeated after 3,000 moves. Boom! The two of them unleashed their auras. Both of them were at the peak of the martial ancestor realm. It was obvious that they didn't lack the resources to raise their cultivation realms. Therefore, they were competing with their talent, foundation, and combat experience. Bang! 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 The battle between the two of them was extremely exciting. Wangu Wuji's fighting style was like a demon. His claws were indestructible and it was hard to defend against them. Looking at Sakura again, the moment his innate talent was unleashed, he actually transformed into a black skeleton. It was as if he was cast from an unknown rock and had the strength to pull up mountains and rivers. Wangu Wuji's talent has reached the 5th rank. Moreover, he comes from the Wangu clan and his bloodline seems to have been stimulated. Lin Ling watched the battle between the two with a smile on his face. Wangu Wuji was the same as Duan Wuhan. Both of them were geniuses from the number 1 family in the divine continent. Therefore, Wangu Wuji's foundation wasn't weak at all. Furthermore, due to the invisible pressure of the Kaiyuan River, Wangu Wuji's strength had risen much faster than when he was in his family. Looking at Sakura again, the smile on the corner of Lin Ling's mouth became even thicker. Because Sakura's talent had already reached the 6th grade. In the 36 academies, he was also one of the experts of Shunsan Hall. His strength was probably not much weaker than young Master Yao and the others. Looks like the Kaiyuan River is also a land of miracles. After all, it had only been a few years since he had separated from Lin Ling. Sakura's current strength is indeed not weak. Because he is guarding this mine, ordinary people don't dare to invade. That's because there are headhunters and demonic snakes in the grassland. If cultivators don't form an alliance, there's a high chance that they will die. Sigh. Meng Lu suddenly spoke up. That's right. It isn't easy for Big Brother to hold the entire mine. However, your strength has also increased by quite a bit. Sigh. Lin Ling nodded his head and smiled. After hearing Lin Ling's words, Meng Lu smiled faintly. However, his heart was filled with joy. To be praised and acknowledged by Lin Ling, he was even happier than eating a bee. Amazing. As expected of the leader. Sigh. The battle is getting more and more intense. If it wasn't for Leader Yeshua's barrier, the mountain fortress would have been destroyed long ago. Sigh. The onlookers said with admiration. Their faces were full of excitement. Admit defeat, admit defeat. After 3,000 moves, a voice finally rang out. Wangu Wuji had admitted defeat. Lost. Wangu Wuji has lost. Laughter rang out from the crowd. They weren't surprised by the outcome. Because Sakura Shurtian and the others often exchanged pointers, they all knew that Sakura Shurtian was stronger than them by a bit. You're too shameless. The amount of world energy you consume is not comparable to mine. Hence, I lost in a battle of attrition. Wangu Wuji, who had walked down from the battle stage, was clearly depressed. Sakura was like a tortoise shell that couldn't be broken. Furthermore, the amount of world energy he consumed was less than Wangu Wuji's. Hence, after a long time, Wangu Wuji was defeated. Aha, a loss is a loss. What nonsense are you spouting? Sakura was clearly in a good mood. He laughed as he walked. After Sakura landed, it was Meng Lu's turn to go on stage. He wasn't pretentious and leaped onto the martial stage in one step. Looking at Meng Lu, who was in high spirits, everyone was filled with anticipation. Sakura and the others were the same. Meng Lu's talent had reached the 6th grade, and he was at the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Who would they challenge this time? Meng Lu licked his lips and looked around excitedly. Finally, his gaze landed on Lin Ling. Lin Ling, why don't you play with me? Wah, it's finally Lord Lin Ling's turn. Everyone had been looking forward to this battle for a long time. That was because Indra and Wangu Wuji had already stepped up, and Meng Lu was too embarrassed to challenge them. In that case, he only had 2 choices. One was Yeshua, and the other was Lin Ling. Since Meng Lu was too embarrassed to bully a girl, he naturally chose Lin Ling. What a gutsy fellow. Sakura and Wangu Wuji laughed when they saw Meng Lu's reaction. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Ling shook his head. Let's play then. Then, he leaped up and landed lightly on the fighting ring. Lord Lin Ling, go for it. Lord Meng Lu, you have to defeat Lord Lin Ling. I'm your loyal fan. The atmosphere became even more heated. Many people licked their lips as their blood boiled. To them, being able to witness a battle between martial ancestor realm experts was the only way they could live their lives in vain. When they returned to their hometowns in the future, they could boast about it. Lin Ling, you and I both came from the Azure State. Let me see how much your strength has improved over the years. I hope you won't embarrass the Azure State. Meng Lu's hair fluttered in the wind. An ancient demonic god's tomb appeared behind him. It was dark and gloomy as if it was telling an ancient story. At the same time, countless maple leaves fell quietly. At that moment, Meng Lu's aura changed. He was no longer carefree. Instead, he became gloomy and cold like the god of the underworld. His aura was similar to Sakura's. They were both gloomy and cold as if they came from the underworld. The difference was that one was moving while the other was still. Meng Lu was still. Lin Ling smiled when he sensed the surging realm energy. He immediately activated his realm energy and summoned the time and space divine steel. The martial stage instantly shook, especially those who saw Lin Ling's strength for the first time. Each and every one of them was shocked. It seemed that Lin Ling's title as the fourth leader was not just for show. Boom! In the next moment, the two figures approached each other and collided. This was close combat. Chapter 3803. Dreamflow's innate talent. Pop! Pop! Under the exchange of blows between the two of them, the solid martial stage turned into dust and drifted in the air. It was extremely dazzling. As the crowd watched the powerful clash between the two, their jaws dropped. Their eyes were filled with excitement. They hoped that one day in the future, they would also be so strong that countless martial artists would look up to them. This was especially true for some of the younger generation. They clenched their fists tightly, as if they were the main character of the battle that everyone was watching. These two leaders have been through thousands of battles. They've walked more than you've eaten salt. So, if you want to reach their level, the only thing you can do is to work hard. An old man didn't forget to give pointers to the juniors. Of course, his eyes were still fixed on the battle platform, and there was only reverence in them. Lin Ling's strength has improved so quickly. His cultivation has always been the lowest among us, but he has now reached the intermediate martial progenitor realm. Wangu Wuji said solemnly. That's right. Furthermore, Lin Ling's talent hasn't fallen behind either. His space-time divine steel has reached the 5th grade. It seems like he's had a lot of fortunate encounters in the final world. However, he's still a 4th grade martial progenitor, while Menglu has reached the 6th grade martial progenitor realm. Furthermore, Menglu's talent has reached the 6th grade martial progenitor realm. Not to mention, Menglu's talent has reached the 6th grade martial progenitor realm, and he even casually mentioned that he's not far away from reaching the 7th grade. From this point of view, Lin Ling will have a hard time defeating Menglu. At the side, Yeshue also spoke. She sighed in her heart. In the past, Lin Ling was considered the weakest in the Godslayer Alliance. He had only shocked the Godslayer Alliance with his Godslayer array. However, in a short period of time, Lin Ling had also grown. His progress was almost catching up to young Master Yao and the others. What she didn't know was that in the final world, Lin Ling had already surpassed the young Demon Lord and the others. Then who do you think will win this battle? All of a sudden, Sakura laughed. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Shui and the others fell silent. Moreover, their voices weren't soft, so the people in the surroundings heard them as well. All of them were extremely suspicious. After all, according to Leader Overnight Snow, Sir Lin Ling's chances of winning shouldn't be very high. According to common sense, Menglu seems to be more powerful. However, Menglu is too arrogant. I'd like to see him suffer more. Wangu Wuji pursed his lips, as though he was unhappy that he hadn't been able to see Menglu humiliate himself. Normally speaking, that would be the case. However, my second brother has never taken the conventional path, thus it shouldn't be too difficult for him to defeat an 8th layer martial progenitor with his cultivation of the 4th layer martial progenitor realm. Besides, my second brother has always had a lot of trump cards up his sleeves. What we're seeing now is only the tip of the iceberg. At this moment, Sakura narrowed his eyes and said, as for Menglu, I'm afraid he's already gone all out. Bang bang bang. On the stage, the battle between the two became more and more intense. The entire fortress was shaking. Menglu's speed was very fast, reaching the speed of 800 worlds. Most importantly, his figure was extremely strange. His fists seemed to come out of nowhere and his strength was extremely ferocious. Lin Ling seemed to be in a defensive state, but his space-time divine steel was equally strange. It was shapeless and colorless. It fell from the sky and caused Menglu to suffer. Although the space-time divine steel wasn't enough to injure Menglu, it obviously affected him. That was not all. What made Menglu speechless was that Lin Ling's eyes seemed to have learned some kind of special ability. When he looked at Menglu, his eyes were filled with ferocity, causing Menglu to be distracted several times. This undoubtedly affected his condition once again. The god has awakened and the demon has been destroyed. Menglu knew that if the battle continued, it would be disadvantageous for him, so he attacked aggressively. Following his voice, the stage suddenly changed and completely turned into a god and demon's tomb. Countless Meng Lu floated around like a god and demon that had awakened from the tomb. His white hair fluttered as he floated toward Lin Ling. This guy actually used this move. Sakura and the rest narrowed their eyes. They had clearly faced this move before and suffered a lot. Lin Ling's eyes flashed slightly. He glided over on the ground and slashed out with his sword, directly cutting a figure in front of him in half. However, he also immediately discovered that it was fake. Moreover, Lin Ling sensed that the rich ancestral power was about 60% or so. It seemed that Meng Lu's martial Dao foundation had also greatly improved. "Hey Lin Ling, you've been caught by me." Almost at the same time, countless Meng Lu suddenly appeared around Lin Ling. They held tombstones in their hands and smashed down fiercely at Lin Ling. This smash was like heaven and earth collapsing. Probably not many peak martial ancestors could block it. So powerful. Everyone sensed the terrifying realm essence fluctuations and sucked in a cold breath. I knew it. The most terrifying part of this move is that tombstone. Yeah, that guy's moves have always been strange. It's impossible to guard against them. Most importantly, he has used 8 tombstones this time. Previously, when he used 6 tombstones, we were almost defeated. This shows that he is indeed going all out against Lin Ling. The eyes of Sakura and the rest flickered as they stared at the platform, as if they were afraid of missing out on anything. However, Lin Ling, who was surrounded, reacted quickly. He lowered his body and the tyrannical song sword appeared on his back. Almost at the same time, the 8 tombstones smashed down fiercely with a terrifying aura and a mysterious melody, landing on the giant sword on Lin Ling's back. Bang! 8 tombstones suppressing the celestial demon. This was a secret skill of the Tomb Guardian tribe. It was used to suppress the resurrected celestial demon back into the tomb. Therefore, it was also known as the soul-suppressing melody. With Lin Ling as the center, a terrifying wave of air gushed out from all directions. Within the mountain fortress, countless people were blown down. However, they did not want to miss a single scene and continued to stare intently at the martial stage. Nice! At this moment, Sakura shouted excitedly. His voice woke everyone up. Only now did they see that Lin Ling's giant sword was behind him. His entire body was bent over, but the 8 tombstones were all blocked by the sword. "Lin Ling, I'm going all out. Don't hold back." "Ha." That Meng Lu laughed and his heart became even more solemn. He remembered that when Sakura took this move of his for the first time, he was suppressed to the point of lying on the ground. However, Lin Ling reacted and even blocked it. "Haha, I'm the one who said this to you. Don't hold back against me." "Haha." Lin Ling held his sword and smiled faintly. "It's not over yet. Next you have to be careful." "Haha." Meng Lu's aura rose as he suddenly shouted, "Raise the coffins." "Haha." Following his shout, 8 tombstones rose up and arranged into a strange formation in the sky as they slowly rotated. This move undoubtedly shocked Sakura and the rest because they had never seen this move before. They also did not expect that there would be a follow-up move after the 8 tombstones. "Look, Lin Ling's sword!" Exclamation point. Chapter 3804. Seal. The 8 tombstones were still slowly rotating, but at the center of the tombstones, a huge sword was floating there, like a sealed demon god. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. He looked at his hand and found that he was still holding the tyrannical song sword. Of course, under his gaze, the sword slowly disappeared and finally disappeared. Looking up again, Lin Ling found that the tyrannical song sword had been sealed in the sky. This surprised Lin Ling. Dreamflow actually had such a trick up his sleeve? Lin Ling's soul force had increased greatly, and he had a tacit understanding with the tyrannical song sword. For Meng Lu to steal his sword without anyone noticing was already extremely extraordinary. "Haha, Lin Ling, I didn't waste these years in the Kaiwan River." Seeing the tyrannical song sword disappear, Meng Lu smiled excitedly and no longer hid his strength. He raised his hands to the sky. A mysterious force field appeared, as if a world was born, covering the entire martial platform. This guy used his killer move? When the mysterious force field appeared, the expressions of Sakura and the others changed greatly, because when they sparred in the past, Meng Lu would never use this move. And also because this was the ultimate skill that Meng Lu relied on to become famous. Soul extraction. Lin Ling had fought with Meng Lu in the past, so he naturally knew how terrifying this move was. As long as one touched Meng Lu, their soul would immediately be extracted. It was extremely strange. At that time Lin Ling had punched Meng Lu's cheek, causing him to lose consciousness. Only then did he break the soul extraction move. Lin Ling had guessed that Meng Lu's only flaw was his cheek. But so many years had passed, and Meng Lu must have made up for this flaw, or even made this move stronger. Retreat. Before he could figure out the other party's method, Lin Ling retreated. Bang! But just as he retreated 100 meters, Lin Ling felt that he had hit a hard wall. But when he looked back, there was only darkness behind him, and there was no wall. This must be the power of Meng Lu's talent. He had sealed himself in a space like the tomb of gods and demons. Meng Lu was a member of the Tomb Guardian clan. His talent was indeed terrifying, and he wasn't any weaker than Wanyan Bupo. Wanyan Bupo had cultivated for a longer time, so he was only stronger than Meng Lu. But in the future, Meng Lu would definitely reach Wanyan Bupo's height. Lin Ling, I seem to win. Almost at the same time, a voice drifted in front of him. It was Dreamflow's voice, which made Lin Ling feel that something was wrong. Just as he was about to leave, he found that an invisible barrier had appeared in front of him. There were barriers on his left, right, top, and bottom. Snowy Maple World Ceiling Coffin. Meng 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 Ji Meng Meng Ji. Meng Ji Ji Ji. Lin Ling, on the other hand, seemed to be sealed in a coffin. Everything was just like what Wanyan Bupo had said before. In the final world, not everyone cultivated the King Dao. Others used their talents to assist them in battle. And these strange talents, if they couldn't be deciphered, their power would still be shocking. Soul extraction. Meng Lu appeared in front of the coffin, and his hand reached out to grab it. Rumble. At that moment a thunderous boom rang out. Then, a terrifying amount of energy was pulled out from the coffin like a torrential river. Not only did it shake the fortress, but it also shook the grassland nearby. Meng Lu, he isn't trying to extract Lin Ling's soul. He's trying to extract Lin Ling's energy. Wangu Wuji said solemnly. He was also shocked by Meng Lu's methods. That was because Meng Lu had never used such a killing move when he sparred with them. Of course, all of them had their own killing moves, and they wouldn't use them when sparring. After all, it was a spar between brothers, and not a life-and-death battle. But now Meng Lu was treating the spar as a life-and-death battle. Meng Lu, you're too shameless. Wangu Wuji couldn't help but curse when he thought of this. After all, he had been hoping that Meng Lu would be humiliated. However, Sakura and Yi Shui didn't say anything. Instead, they looked at Meng Lu's methods in shock. That was because the amount of energy that Meng Lu had extracted was too terrifying. In fact, even Meng Lu was shocked. Although he knew that Lin Ling was extraordinary, he didn't expect Lin Ling's energy to be so dense. How was this the energy of a level 4 martial ancestor? It was comparable to the energy of a level 8 martial ancestor. Destroy! A large amount of energy appeared in his hand. Meng Lu raised his hand high and slammed it down. Rumble! Using his innate talent, he suppressed the power of the realm essence. After he clenched his fist, the realm essence exploded. However, to everyone's surprise, the explosion of the energy wasn't very powerful. That was because the energy of the energy had been transmitted to his demonic god's tomb. Without the energy of the energy or the sword, Lin Ling's fate was obvious. The surroundings gradually quieted down. Following that, many people roared, "Lord Dreamflow, you're mighty mighty." They could tell that Meng Lu had won. Although they weren't surprised by this scene, they still felt that Meng Lu was stronger than Lord Lin Ling. After witnessing it with their own eyes, they were still excited. I've won. Meng Lu rubbed his nose and smiled. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was more excited than anyone else. Naturally, he didn't have any hostility towards Lin Ling. However, he had always regarded Lin Ling as the first opponent he had to surpass in his life. He even swore that if he couldn't surpass Lin Ling, he wouldn't return to the Tomb Guardian tribe to cultivate. One had to know that if he returned to the Tomb Guardian tribe, his strength would increase even faster. However, for the sake of his stubborn martial heart, he didn't return. He wanted to defeat Lin Ling with his own hands. After so many years, the knot in his heart had finally been untied. If this fellow hadn't relied on unexpected means, he definitely wouldn't have won. It's an unfair victory. Wangu Wuji was a little jealous when he saw the excited Meng Lu. However, Yeshua shook her head and said, Wuji, don't spoil our relationship. Regardless of whether Lin Ling or Meng Lu loses, we are still on the same side. Moreover, even though Meng Lu won unfairly, victory or defeat is the most important thing in a battle between cultivators. Perhaps when Lin Ling fights Meng Lu next time, he will be on guard and might win that battle. However, it's undeniable that he has lost. I know what you mean. In fact, I just don't like Meng Lu. I don't want him to be stronger than me, Wangu Wuji said with a shrug. Sakura, who had been silent all this while, slowly opened his mouth and said, regardless of whether you are a brother or an enemy, you should fight with your full strength. Therefore Meng Lu is right. However, I'm curious. Is that all my brother has? Chapter 3805. The Red Alliance is looking for trouble. Well, Lin Ling does have a lot of tricks up his sleeves, but all of them are based on his realm essence. Wangu Wuji's eyes flickered and he quickly looked at the sealed Lin Ling. On the martial stage, Meng Lu was still excited, but he felt that something was amiss. Everything was going too smoothly. It was so smooth that he felt it was unreal. Was it not over yet? In fact, it was not over yet. Boom! The coffin barrier in front of them rumbled. It felt as if a giant was about to break out of the coffin. Boom! Another rumble sounded, shocking everyone. Rumble! Finally, under the third punch, the coffin barrier was destroyed. Then a figure shot towards Meng Lu like a shooting star. Meng Lu, you stole my sword and exhausted my realm essence. I have to admit that you're very powerful, but you seem to have forgotten that I, Lin Ling, am not only powerful with my realm essence. Lin Ling appeared in front of Meng Lu in an instant, and his shoulder was like a divine bull's horn as he slammed into Meng Lu. This collision could easily destroy 10,000 worlds. Cracks appeared in the void. Meng Lu's face changed drastically, and he crossed his arms. A barrier appeared on his arms. Boom! However, after the collision, cracks appeared on the barrier, and Meng Lu was sent flying. Everyone was shocked. Sakura and the others had their mouths agape. Although they felt that Lin Ling would not lose so easily, they only knew how terrifying Lin Ling was after witnessing it with their own eyes. You bastard! Meng Lu roared because he realized that Lin Ling was even more ferocious without his realm essence. In fact, he knew that Lin Ling had physical strength, but he did not think that it was comparable to his realm essence. But now Lin Ling showed him that realm essence was not the only thing. Sometimes physical strength was more powerful than realm essence. Good, haha, Lin Ling. I'm afraid you've reached the power of 8,000 worlds. Following that, Dream Flow forcibly stopped the momentum from flying backward. He gathered all the strength in his body and prepared to clash head-on with Lin Ling. Although Lin Ling's physical strength was terrifying, he believed that the power of 8,000 worlds should not be enough to defeat him. Sorry, Meng Lu. You're going to lose in 3 punches because I'm starting to get serious. Lin Ling's speed suddenly skyrocketed, as if he was galloping in the river of time. A fist appeared. The void exploded. The grassland in the distance also exploded, and countless green grasses soared into the sky. Dreamflow was forced back 3 steps by the punch. But when the second punch came, Meng Lu realized that this wasn't a human's fist, but a monster's fist. It had probably reached the power of 9,000 worlds. Thud thud thud. He was also retreating madly in the sky. But the third punch arrived. The power of 10,000 worlds erupted. Boom! A wave of chi was blasted out in the sky, as if it was a road that extended to the horizon. And within that wave of chi, Dreamflow was sent flying backward. After retreating several steps, he finally came to a stop and looked at Lin Ling in shock. Lin Ling was also looking at him in shock. Dreamflow was not defeated, and he was not weak. Plop! But just as he thought that, Dreamflow knelt down on one knee and admitted defeat. Fuck, are you trying to kill me? I'm not fighting anymore, I'm not fighting anymore. Stop! When his voice drifted out, Shan Fortress was silent. Everyone's eyes were trembling. The fourth leader, Lin Ling, truly lived up to his reputation. As for Sakura and the rest, The corners of their eyes were twitching. Their strength had increased greatly in the Kaiyuan River, but Lin Ling did not fall behind outside. Not only did he not get overtaken by them, but he seemed to have become even more ferocious. I knew it. This guy is still the strongest among us. Dreamflow wants to defeat him? Dream on. He's simply unfathomable. After a moment of silence, Wanggu Wuji suddenly laughed bitterly. Next, Di Shitian also smiled bitterly. Then Yi Shui also smiled bitterly. As for the newcomers of the God Slayer Alliance, they finally witnessed Lin Ling's strength, and their admiration came from the bottom of their hearts. Lord Lin Ling is mighty. Soon after, cheers rang out like the waves of the sea. Meng Lu felt a sweetness in his throat and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, in order to avoid losing face, he forcefully swallowed it back down. After standing up, he waved his numb arm and said with a bitter smile, "Are you a monster? You're the one who asked me to use my full strength." Looking at Dreamflow, Lin Ling shook his head and laughed. He walked forward and helped Dreamflow up. He knew that Dreamflow had always wanted to surpass him, which was why he had been so fierce. But then again, if Dreamflow had not used his full strength, Lin Ling felt that this exchange was meaningless. Compared to that, I'm more concerned about whether you used your full strength earlier. I seem to have heard you say that it's time to use your full strength. Dreamflow suddenly asked curiously as Lin Ling supported him. Is this question very important? Lin Ling supported Dreamflow with one hand and touched his nose with the other. Of course. However, before Dreamflow could speak, Sakura and the rest spoke in unison. Second brother, we hope you can say that you've already used your full strength. That way the blow to us won't be too big. Sakura even spoke on behalf of the crowd. Since that's the case, then it should be true. Hearing that, Lin Ling continued to touch his nose and said, "That's more like it." Dreamflow, Sakura, and the rest were obviously relaxed. Because Lin Ling was so terrifying before, if he still did not use his full strength, then it would be too much of a blow to them, too perverted. And now Lin Ling had finally used his full strength, which meant that they still had hope of catching up to Lin Ling. Lin Ling had also become more real. After Lin Ling's display of strength, there was no doubt that Shan Fortress had gained another pillar of support. Even Sakura was in a good mood and gave all the miners a day off. The entire Shan Fortress was celebrating Lin Ling's arrival. However, just as they were preparing for the feast outside Shan Fortress, there was a roar that sounded like the sound of a cannon. "Sakura, get out here!" A loud voice sounded, shocking the entire prairie. Everyone was drinking and eating. After hearing that voice, their faces changed greatly. "It's the Red Alliance." Dreamflow frowned as he looked at Sakura and said. Sakura nodded his head and then led everyone towards the wall. "Lin Ling, the Red Alliance is our enemy. They have always been eyeing our mineral vein. It's just that we've resisted with all our might, so they haven't made a move yet. However, they won't give up on this mineral vein, so they've been looking for trouble." Beside him, Yeshue said to Lin Ling, "Be careful later. We've already fought with the Red Alliance several times, so we'll have a way to deal with them." As she spoke, she had already followed them. Lin Ling did the same. He had just arrived and did not know anything, so naturally, he was just observing. "Lin Ling, everything is as you've said before. The Red Alliance is an organization of the final world's experts. I heard that the person behind them is a half-step to martial god realm expert. This kind of strength is terrifying." Chapter 3806. The Leader of the Miners. Half-step to martial god realm? Lin Ling's eyes flashed. If the Red Alliance was that simple, then there was nothing to be afraid of. Then he appeared on top of the city wall. He saw that in the distance, there were more than a dozen divine cannons on the grassland. They were constantly firing at the sky. Beside the divine cannons, there were almost 100 people standing there with cold smiles on their faces. Most of them were at the martial progenitor realm, and the strongest among them was at the peak of the martial progenitor realm. "Sakura, get out here." The leader of the group was wearing a white robe with a red cloth tied around his shoulder. He pointed at Sans and shouted angrily. "His name is Zhan Sanshan. He's from Yuzhou. He's a subordinate of a half-step to martial god from the Red Alliance. He's our old rival. Sakura once injured him, But he didn't kill him because he was afraid of the experts from the Red Alliance. Yi Shui said again. Zhen Sanshan, what do you mean by this? I've already said that if you want the mine, I won't give it to you. If you want my life, then come and get it. On the city wall, Sakura also shouted coldly. Bullshit. You captured our young master Tian and rode him like a dog. You broke the rules first. Now hand over the mine. Zhen Sanshan let out another furious roar. He hated the Godslayer Alliance to the core. If it wasn't for the fact that Sakura had the idea of perishing together with them, and told them that if they tried to snatch the mine by force, Sakura would have blown it up. Otherwise, the Red Alliance would have already killed this group of people. This was because the Red Alliance had many members in the Great Prairie. The Godslayer Alliance was no match for them. Young Master Tian? Hearing Zhen Sanshan's words, he also remembered the people that Lin Ling and the others used to ride. Young Master Tian, what do I know? Stop slandering me. It was naturally impossible for Sakura to admit it. You've seen my men. Let me tell you, if you don't hand him over today, don't blame us for flattening this place. Suppressing the three mountains also became aggressive. Hearing this, Sakura laughed instead. So powerful? If you don't come, then you're my son. I'll stand here and see how you're going to flatten me. Although the Red Alliance had a large number of people, and their martial artists were strong, it was obvious that the top masters were not here. Sakura didn't put him in his eyes from the beginning to the end. Come on, come on. Last time you were beaten until you ate shit. This time, if I don't beat you until you eat a toilet, my surname isn't Wanggu. Wanggu Wuji laughed mockingly. Hearing these words, Zhen Sanshan's teeth started to chatter. Although he couldn't wait to kill Sakura and the rest, he also admitted in his heart that he really wasn't the latter's match in a one-on-one battle. Ha ha ha. However, when he thought of the purpose of his visit, he immediately laughed wildly. When he laughed, the people around him laughed as well. He looked incomparably arrogant. She placed her hands on her hips and almost made the clouds in the sky laugh. To the members of the Godslayer Alliance, this look was very disgusting. However, they also knew that since this group of people was laughing so recklessly, they probably had some kind of confidence. Sakura, you want to continue mining? You don't even know the rules of mining. After Zhen Sanshan laughed heartily, he immediately flung his hair in a confident and unrestrained manner, which made Sakura and the others frown, feeling that something was even more wrong. Miners of the Godslayer Alliance, listen up. Your leader has ordered you to withdraw from the mining area immediately. Next, Zhen Sanshan let out another angry roar. Sakura and the others' faces changed drastically when they heard this. It turned out that the Red Alliance wanted to snatch away their miners. If they didn't have any miners, they would have to mine for a few hundred years. As for the miners, they didn't belong to the Godslayer Alliance. They were hired by the Miners Alliance. The strength of these miners was not strong, and they were led by several experts. However, they had the ability to mine. Therefore, in the prairie, although the status of miners was not very high, no one dared to treat them as slaves. In the fortress, all the miners were in a difficult position. In truth, although they were hired, they had developed feelings for the members of the Godslayer Alliance over the years. Moreover, the members of the Godslayer Alliance didn't treat them as miners, but as friends and partners. Therefore, they couldn't withdraw from the mining area. Have you forgotten your leader? At this moment, Zhen Sanshan shouted again. A country had its laws and a family had its rules. Naturally, the miners had their own rules too. They all obeyed the orders of a few leaders who were responsible for protecting them. They were also responsible for contacting the mines and taking some rewards from them. Therefore, to the miners, the leaders were their parents. Moreover, they didn't want to break the rules of the Miners Alliance and disobey the orders of their leaders. Zhen Sanshan, do you think you're the leader? At this moment, Sakura suddenly sneered. This was because he knew that the leaders of the Miners Alliance were all big shots. Generally speaking, why would they care about these small mines? Not to mention helping Zhen Sanshan. How did you know? It seems that you've seen through me. Hearing Sakura's words, Zhen Sanshan suddenly revealed a surprised expression. It was as if Sakura had seen through his scheme. However, his expression was too exaggerated and fake. Sure enough, he immediately laughed. Haha, I'm sorry. Although I'm not the leader of the Miners Alliance, I'm here to speak for the leader. I know you won't believe me, Then let me tell you who this leader is. He's from the Final World's Rainbow Academy. He's even an expert from Sanshan Hall. As soon as he finished speaking, Sakura and the others' expressions changed. An expert from the Final World? This was obviously not someone they could provoke. However, Sanshan's words were still shocking. He's also a member of a large alliance. That's the extremely renowned Heaven-Crushing Alliance. I've heard that their backer is a martial god. Moreover, this elite is rumored to be the leader of one of the 10 evils of the 9 states. Chi. The members of the God-Slaying Alliance gasped. Of course, they'd heard of the 9 states' 10 evils. However, they'd never imagined that the person who appeared was a leader. Are you afraid? Let me tell you, this lord is a half-step martial god. Seeing the God-Slaying Alliance fall silent, Sanshan roared proudly. However, the effect was obvious because the members of the God-Slaying Alliance all looked serious. This was also the Red Alliance's scheme. They were afraid that the God-Slaying Alliance would destroy the mine, so they didn't use force. Instead, they took back the miners. Without the miners, the God-Slaying Alliance could only leave with their tails between their legs. As for the leader of the Miners' Alliance, he had a very high status. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to invite him unless it was a large mine. However, the Red Alliance's mastermind happened to have met him once and asked for his help. Naturally, the mastermind would do him a favor. The miners over there have all returned. At this moment, a dignified voice sounded. Then a tall figure walked out. This person looked very ordinary, but his eyes seemed as if he didn't care about anything. Moreover, he was very powerful. He was a half-step martial god. Chapter 3807. Nitpicking. To the God Extermination Alliance, other than the God Extermination Great Array, when had they ever come into contact with a martial god realm expert? Sir, we, the God Slayer Alliance, give you a commission. Moreover, we hired the miners through the headhunters. We didn't violate the Great Prairie's rules. At this moment, Sakura cupped his hands and said, over the years, many unwritten rules have been formed in the Great Prairie. Miners were one kind of rule and so was the headhunters. The so-called headhunters not only had the task of killing, but they also had the task of introducing people, finding people, and so on. They were like middlemen. Finding the miners through the headhunters and reaching an agreement was also a rule. Therefore, the God Slayer Alliance did not violate the Prairie's rules. Which headhunter clan? We, the Mining Union, did not receive this news. I believe that you have deliberately violated the rules by privately hiring miners and destroying the balance of our mining industry. Therefore, I advise you to leave the Guan Mountains immediately. Otherwise, don't blame the Mining Union for being impolite. That person said indifferently. Obviously, he was also deliberately nitpicking. Upon hearing this, the members of the God Slayer Alliance were enraged. That guy was deliberately targeting them. My lord, we have indeed invited the Headhunter clan. How about we have the Headhunter clan testify? Sakura once again cupped his hands and said with a smile. With his temperament, if he was alone, he would have already cursed it out loud. But now he had no choice but to consider the big picture. Seeing Sakura's humble appearance, Sanshan laughed out loud. He supported his waist with one hand and pointed at Sakura with the other. Humph, you want to prove it? No need. An explanation is just a cover-up. However, our Red Alliance likes to leave some leeway when doing things. So don't say that we didn't give you a chance. If all of you kneel down and kowtow 3 times, maybe we will let you go. Bullshit you. Hearing this, Di Shirtian couldn't help but shout in anger. You mean to say that Lord Liu isn't qualified? Jean Three Mountains suddenly smiled and directed the conflict to the expert beside him. I never said that. Sakura wanted nothing more than to kill that despicable Sanshan. This person was trying to drive a wedge between them and the God Slayer Alliance, forcing them to their deaths. Most importantly, he was reprimanding them with the tone of an experienced person. Sure enough, Jean Three Mountains snorted coldly again. I've said it before. Explaining is just covering up. A truly magnanimous person wouldn't even bother to explain. Anger. Everyone's anger reached the sky. This guy, he was the one who said black and white. He was the one who said all the reasons. Lord Liu, I think we should give them a chance. If they all kneel down, how about we leave them some miners? Jean Sanchon turned to look at Lord Lu and said. Of course, he seemed to be pleading on behalf of the God-Slayer Alliance, but in reality, he wanted to humiliate Sakura and the others to vent his anger. If Sakura and the others kowtowed and admitted their mistakes at most, he would only spare one miner. Did you hear that? I don't know where you people came from, but you dare to question my qualifications. Now kneel down and admit your wrongs. Lord Lu said coldly. The God-Slayer Alliance was very famous in the 9 prefectures, and it even had some fame in the final world. However, to someone like him, who was in the strongest circle of the Divine 3 Halls, it was completely unknown. We can't do that. Sakura was also furious. Hearing this, Lord Lu shook his head. I don't like to push people to their deaths. However, since you don't want to give face to me, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Wait. Just as he finished speaking, an old man's voice rang out. If we kowtow and admit our wrongs, will this lord leave the miners for us? Of course. Lord Lu nodded, but he said in his heart, just leave one miner. Lord D, why don't we give in and look at the big picture? Isn't the purpose of these people following us to become stronger? For the sake of imperial crystals, they also have families and sects behind them. They also want to bring some imperial crystals home, so that their families can live a good life. The old man immediately advised Sakura. This old man obviously had a high status in the God-Slayer Alliance. Many people nodded at his suggestion because they had stayed in the Kaiyuan River for several years. If they returned empty-handed, wouldn't they have come in vain? Bullshit, Old Lee. Can't you see that they are deliberately making things difficult for us? Sakura was extremely opposed to it. Moreover, many people agreed with his idea. They would rather not take the money than kowtow and admit their wrongs. Most of these people were from the older generation of the God-Slayer Alliance. However, if we refuse, we will return empty-handed. That lord is here on behalf of the Miners' Alliance. If he says anything, all the miners in the Gyuan Mountains will not work for us. The old man said earnestly. Sakura gritted his teeth. It was obvious that he had seen this kind of thing many times in the Kaiyuan River. This also made her realize the importance of strength. Apart from that, one's background and connections were also the most important. Without a background and connections, the God-Slayer Alliance would be harassed everywhere. Are the two of you done talking? If you want to fight, do it at home. I'm not interested in listening to your nonsense. Now I will ask you one question. Are you going to kneel or not? However, at the moment when the crowd was feeling vexed, Lord Lu spoke again. His words did not give them any face at all. Kneel, kneel. This time more people in the God-Slayer Alliance admitted defeat. They no longer had the arrogance of the past in the 9 states. As for the older generation, they clenched their fists tightly. They had a stronger backbone and the past glory of the God-Slayer Alliance was engraved in their minds. Of course, those glory days had unknowingly been obliterated over the years. After all, the situation was stronger than the person. You want us to kneel? Just as they were arguing, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly sounded out. That's right. Could it be that you are deaf? Lord Lu did not see the person who spoke and instead asked contemptuously. Whether I am deaf or not, I don't know. I only know that there is a surviving member who has escaped. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. The voice drifted out from the city wall again. Sakura's eyes narrowed and so did Meng Lu. The people of the God-Slayer Alliance also narrowed their eyes. They all turned their heads at the same time and looked at the person who spoke. It was Lin Ling. Although they did not know the meaning of Lin Ling's words, Lin Ling seemed to be calling Lord Lu a surviving member. As for the people of the Red Alliance, each of them had their mouths wide open. That guy's words had greatly offended Lord Lu. When did such a troublemaker come to the God-Slayer Alliance? Could it be that he had just arrived at the ancient Yuan mountain range and did not know the rules? In fact, the person who spoke had indeed just arrived at the ancient Yuan mountain range and did not know the rules here. How audacious of him to violate the rules and still dare to speak like that. Chapter 3808. Senior. However, he didn't notice that Lord Lu was frowning as he looked at the newcomer. That face was too familiar. However, he couldn't remember where he had seen that face before. He only knew that the person seemed to be familiar and deadly. Lord Lu was deep in thought. He immediately let Jin Sanshan know that Lord Lu was angry. He might even kill Sakura and the others. He shouted angrily, "God Slayer Alliance, you're courting death. Kneel before me." However, before he could finish speaking, Lord Lu's expression changed. He looked to the side and slapped Jin Sanshan, sending him flying. Bang! Jin Sanshan fell to the ground. He held his face and looked aggrieved. That was a vicious slap. Why did he hit him? Everyone's eyes widened. However, Lord Lu's body was trembling. He seemed to be hesitating whether he should run or not. In the end, he gritted his teeth and flew toward Shan Fortress. Sakura and the others immediately felt as if they were facing a great enemy. How could they fight against a half-step to martial god realm expert? Sakura was prepared to fight to the death. The others also quietly gathered their realm essence. However, Lord Lu floated in front of the city wall and frowned as he looked at the crowd. In fact, he was mostly looking at Lin Ling. That appearance, that robe, that sword. Wasn't that the guy who destroyed the Heaven-Crushing Alliance? He was also there at that time. However, he wasn't a core member, so he watched from afar. However, that battle left a deep impression in his heart. That was because that was a guy who destroyed the Alliance. Senior Lu Feibing was blind. He didn't see you here. As he finished his last sentence, he smiled like a pug and bent down. He didn't even know Lin Ling's name. He only knew that this guy was really terrifying. Seeing this, the people of the God Slayer Alliance were all petrified. The people of the Red Alliance were also petrified. Was he still a half-step martial god? Was he still the leader of the Miners Alliance? Previously, he was insufferably arrogant and condescending. Why was he bowing to him now? Was this a joke? You're quite bold. You brought the Red Alliance here to settle the score with me. At this moment, Lin Ling finally spoke. He didn't know who Lu Feibing was. However, upon hearing that Lu Feibing was from the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, he instantly lost all fear. He even guessed that this guy should be a survivor who had escaped. This was because when the Heaven-Crushing Alliance had been destroyed, there had been quite a few survivors who had managed to escape. Lin Ling's words were like a bolt from the blue to Lu Feibing, because he knew that the blue-robed young man was a god of slaughter as well, and killing half-step martial gods was as easy as chopping vegetables. Misunderstanding, misunderstanding. He shouted anxiously, then rushed back to Jin Sanshan's side. He grabbed Jin Sanshan and slapped him hard. Is the Red Alliance courting death? How dare you attack the God Slayer Alliance? I'll beat you up. I'll beat you up. In order to prove that he had nothing to do with the Red Alliance, Lu Feibing went all out. Jin Sanshan's teeth were all knocked out. Compared to his previous arrogant attitude with his hands on his hips, it was a 180-degree change. He had never imagined that Lord Lu would slap him in the face for a fellow from the God Slayer Alliance. And from the looks of it, that fellow was even weaker than Sakura and the others. Lord Lu, I'm from the Red Alliance. Jin Sanshan said hurriedly, immediately bringing up his background. Don't mention the Red Alliance to me. Go back and tell that fellow from the Red Alliance that this has nothing to do with me, and my relationship with him has been severed. Also, I've already shown mercy by not killing you. You seem to be guarding a small mine, right? I'll take back all the miners in your mine. Lu Feibing grabbed Jin Sanshan's collar and roared angrily. His saliva sprayed all over Jin Sanshan's face, causing him to be dumbfounded. Then he shouted unwillingly, Lord Lu, don't. The Red Alliance had many members, and they were spread across the Great Prairie. Some of the small mines were guarded by some small leaders, and Jin Sanshan was also guarding a small mine. However, if the miners were taken away, how could he mine? How could he report to the Red Alliance? Moreover, he was here to lead the way for Lord Lu. But now that he had failed to take back the miners, he didn't know how to report to the Red Alliance. However, Lu Feibing ignored him and flew back to the fortress. His forehead was full of cold sweat. He wondered if the killing god had calmed down. He knew that he wouldn't be able to defeat Chun-Shi. So, it wasn't that he hadn't thought of fleeing, but he gave up in the end. Because he'd heard that this god of slaughter was extremely swift. If Chun-Shi wanted to kill him, then he wouldn't be able to escape at all. Senior, how are things now? Lu Feibing came to the front of the fortress again and bowed. You were very fierce to the God-Slayer Alliance before this. Lin Ling put his hands behind his back and looked at him indifferently. Senior, it was a misunderstanding. I really didn't know that the God-Slayer Alliance was related to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to behave so atrociously here even if you gave me 100 guts. Moreover, I was framed by the Red Alliance. Lu Feibing said with a bitter smile, then gave himself a few hard slaps. Those few slaps had even knocked out his teeth. The people from the God-Slayer Alliance were shocked. Sakura and the others opened their mouths wide. What was going on? He had almost chased away the people from the God-Slayer Alliance and now he was slapping himself? Moreover, he knew Lin Ling. Moreover, he seemed to be afraid of Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling was only at the middle stage martial ancestor realm. Even if Lin Ling was at the half-step martial god realm, Master Lu wouldn't be so afraid of him. Now he was flattering him. It wasn't rare for a half-step martial god realm expert to be afraid of someone. However, flattery and bootlicking were rare. Do you still want our miners? At this moment Lin Ling spoke again. No. If you are still short of miners, I can transfer some over. Lu Feibing shook his head like a rattle drum. He then explained, this has nothing to do with me. Before I came here, I didn't even know what the God-Slayer Alliance was. I know. This shouldn't have anything to do with you. Lin Ling immediately nodded. Lu Feibing was delighted by his words. However, Lin Ling spoke again. There are countless mineral veins in the Guan Mountain Range. You are just the leader of the miners. I don't think you would personally come here for a small mine of the God-Slayer Alliance. Therefore, you should have received some reward. Hearing this, Lu Feibing broke out in cold sweat. This. However, after being stared at by Lin Ling, he immediately revealed everything. I gave you a lot of royal crystals, more than 5 billion. I also gave you a drop of all spirits water. The crowd gasped when they heard this. 5 billion imperial crystals, that was a huge sum. Chapter 3809. End it. The Red Alliance is really generous. Lin Ling sneered. 5 billion royal crystals? With Lin Ling's current net worth it wasn't much. However, he knew that this amount of royal crystals was a lot for the God-Slayer Alliance. Seeing Lin Ling's sneer, Lu Xuebing's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that this God-Slayer wants to kill me? I'll donate all of this money to the God-Slayer Alliance. Lu Feibing slapped his chest and said. Everyone from the God-Slayer Alliance opened their mouths wide in shock. Because this Lord Lu's fear of Lin Ling had reached an extremely tragic level, which was why he had spat out the meat at the side of his mouth. In the distance, everyone from the Red Alliance opened their mouths wide. Some of them even felt like they were dreaming. They slapped each other a few times until their teeth almost fell out. This proved that all of this was real. Giving all of this to the God-Slayer Alliance? Isn't this making things difficult for you? Lin Ling said indifferently. Of course not. You flatter me. In fact, I'm half a member of the God-Slayer Alliance. I'm very proud to be able to contribute to the God-Slayer Alliance. Moreover, the miners treat the God-Slayer Alliance as their home. This shows how caring and united the God-Slayer Alliance is. Even I want to give up my position as the leader and become a miner. I wonder if the God-Slayer Alliance will accept us. Lu Feibing slapped his chest and said. Everyone was stunned. Even Lin Ling was the same. They didn't expect that this insufferably arrogant Lord Lu actually had such a talent for flattery. His flattery was practically flawless. Zhan Sanshan and the rest almost couldn't help but clap their hands. This flattery was really good. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. The anger in his heart disappeared. He looked at Lord Lu with a faint smile and said, We're still short of some miners. I think Lord Lu will help us. Alright, how many do you need? Senior, please tell us. I want as many as you have, Lin Ling said. His words gave Sakura and the others a fright. They were deeply afraid that Lin Ling was too arrogant and completely offended Lord Lu, which would ultimately lead to a life and death struggle. However, they were obviously overthinking things. When Lu Feibing saw Lin Ling nod his head, he was even happier than Lin Ling. He finally knew that this crazy killing god had retracted his killing intent. I will do my best to draw everyone here. Lu Feibing immediately patted his chest and said. At this time, Lin Ling also walked out from the wall and walked towards Lu Feibing step by step. This undoubtedly gave Lu Feibing a fright. At some point he almost wanted to turn around and run away. However, in the end, reason still prevailed over madness. He believed that Lin Ling shouldn't want to kill him. Meanwhile, Lin Ling also finally arrived in front of Lu Feibing. He stretched out his hand, causing Lu Feibing to tremble in fear. However, Lin Ling's hand landed on Lu Feibing's collar and helped him tidy it up. At the same time he said, "Work hard. If you follow me, I won't treat you badly." When he finished speaking, he waved his right hand, and a small bottle of water of all spirits floated out and landed in Lu Feibing's hand. This caused Lu Feibing's eyes to narrow. After examining it, he immediately knelt down in the air. As the leader of the miners, he actually didn't lack emperor crystals. However, the water of all spirits was a priceless treasure. Otherwise, he wouldn't have joined the heaven-crushing alliance in the first place. After all, everything was for the sake of the water of all spirits. "Thank you, my lord," he said solemnly. After he finished speaking, he strode away. This also caused the fortress to fall silent. "My lord? Speaking of which, wasn't this Lord Lu here to look for trouble? Why does it seem like he has become a member of the God-slaying alliance?" Meanwhile, Lin Ling walked back with a smile. The reason why he gave Lu Feibing a small bottle of water of all spirits was because Lu Feibing was a local tyrant. He wanted to find out the whereabouts of an Yuer through him. When Lu Feibing left, Zhang Sanshan and the others were instantly terrified. Without another word, they scattered like birds and beasts. As for young Master Tian and the others who were treated like dogs in the fortress, they were still clamoring for the God-slaying alliance to let them go. However, when they saw this scene, their faces turned ashen, and they obediently returned to being dogs. Second brother, treating Lord Lu like this, would it be? After Lin Ling walked back, Sakura immediately asked worriedly. He didn't know why Lu Feibing was afraid of Lin Ling, but he guessed that the latter was in awe of Lin Ling's background. Otherwise, there was no other explanation. After all, one was a half-step martial god, while the other was a middle-stage martial ancestor. The gap between their strength was like heaven and earth. This kind of person is already smooth and slick. Therefore, sometimes we don't have to give him any face. On the contrary, the more humble we are, the more arrogant he will be. We have to suppress him a little so that he will obediently do things. Lin Ling said with a faint smile, "By the way, this Red Alliance keeps causing trouble. Why don't you destroy them?" This seemingly casual sentence shocked Sakura and the others once again. They didn't understand why Lin Ling was so arrogant. However, Sakura shook his head. The Red Alliance has spread over half of the Guyuan mountain range. They have many large and small mineral veins. It's easier said than done to destroy them. Yes. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. If there was only one Red Alliance, Lin Ling would immediately take action to eliminate any future worries. However, if there were too many of them, it would take too much time. Therefore, he decided to ignore them for the time being. Next, Lin Ling asked about the prairie's rules and walked down the wall with Sakura and the others. Looking at Lin Ling, the people of the Godslayer Alliance were all excited. They had long heard that among the 4 leaders of the Godslayer Alliance, in terms of ability, Lin Ling was undoubtedly the leader. However, they weren't too sure about this. Now, however, they were sure. Previously, they were almost driven away. Even the Arch couldn't do anything about it. However, once Lord Lin Ling showed up, everything was easily resolved. Moreover, the Godslayer Alliance had even earned 5 billion royal crystals. After chatting with Sakura as they walked, Sakura asked someone to tidy up a clean room and let Lin Ling in. "Second brother, I haven't seen you for many years. You are still unfathomable. However, I won't ask you anything. As long as you are safe and sound, this is the best gift for me." In front of the door, Sakura stopped and said to Lin Ling with a smile. He had long regarded Lin Ling as his own younger brother. Although this younger brother's ability was stronger than his, he was never jealous. In fact, he was happy and proud of this younger brother. "Big brother, you too." Lin Ling nodded with a smile. Since he started learning martial arts, he had already seen many deaths. Therefore, to have his family and friends by his side was the greatest gift from God to him. "Big brother, your talent has improved a lot. Previously, you were in the state of white bones. Now you have become black bones. However, if you refine your bones, you will be able to advance another level. At this moment, Lin Ling suddenly laughed. This was because the giant ghost beside him was transmitting his voice to Lin Ling. It was also because the giant ghost was very familiar with Sakura's talent. Chapter 38:10. Helping Big Brother cultivate. It can still improve my talent? Hasn't my talent reached its limit? Hearing this, Sakura was surprised. Lin Ling smiled. Although your talent is not orthodox, it has great potential, and there are many ways to develop it. Because you have a trace of the underworld's bloodline, similar to the dream flow, if this bloodline is stimulated, your future will be limitless. That's great. Sakura was excited. If it was someone else who said this, he would definitely treat it as a fart. But since it came from Lin Ling, it was a different story. Lin Ling immediately asked the giant ghost how to help Sakura's bones evolve again. The giant ghost immediately explained. It turned out that he wanted to improve Sakura's talent. After all, he wanted to refine Sakura like a divine tool. Ordinary flames were ineffective against Sakura's talent, but the human sovereign's flame could. This human sovereign's flame, I can't control it. Hearing this, Lin Ling couldn't help but secretly say, "You can, but you must continue to sacrifice the devil jellyfish, and let it carry a trace of the human sovereign's flame. You only need to enter Sakura's body." The giant ghost transmitted his voice. Lin Ling immediately nodded. To be able to help Big Brother become stronger, he naturally wouldn't shirk his responsibility. At that moment, he told Big Brother his idea. Of course, this process was also dangerous. After all, Lin Ling didn't control the human sovereign's flame. He was only using the human sovereign's flame to refine it. Moreover, the process wouldn't be easy. Hearing this, Sakura laughed loudly. "Second brother, go ahead. Big Brother won't die." "Oh right, will this kind of refining affect you? If it does, then Big Brother won't improve his talent." He obviously put Lin Ling first in his heart and thought for Lin Ling. No matter how strong Lin Ling was, if there was danger, he would be the first to block in front of Lin Ling. Lin Ling's heart warmed and he immediately promised, "Don't worry, I won't be in danger." At that moment, both of them entered the room and sat down cross-legged. Lin Ling also began to control the devil jellyfish. Then, the human sovereign's flame appeared from his dantian and quickly entered Sakura's body. Then it started to swim among the black bones. Ugh! Sakura's face suddenly changed and sweat dripped on his forehead. "Big Brother, if you can't withstand it, just shout." Seeing this, Lin also said worriedly, "It's nothing, I'm just a bit, second brother." The Sakura forced a smile, but in reality, a piercing pain was coming from his bones at this moment, as if someone was scraping his bones with a knife. However, he endured it all because he didn't want to let Lin Ling down. Lin Ling also knew that there was no time to lose, so he poured more devil jellyfish into Sakura's body. Almost at the same time, the devil jellyfish that carried the flame of the human king was completely burned into nothingness. That strand of hair-sized flame also floated down. If it landed in Di Shirtian's body, it would be enough to burn him alive. But at that moment, another devil jellyfish appeared and carried the human sovereign's flame as it floated up again. This cycle repeated again and again. Fortunately, the devil jellyfish had some immunity to the human sovereign's flame during this period of time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to hold on for such a long time. After all, the devil jellyfish was originally of the ghost attribute and was naturally afraid of fire. Of course, the devil jellyfish also had a powerful characteristic, which was to absorb. This characteristic also allowed them to carry the human sovereign's flame for a short period of time. Alright, he must withdraw. The human king's flame has always restrained his talent. If he stays any longer, I'm afraid his bones will be burned to ashes. At that moment, the giant ghost suddenly spoke. The human sovereign's flame was the first flame of mankind. In the underworld, there weren't many people who dared to face it head-on, let alone Sakura, who hadn't completely evolved into the devil jellyfish's bone. After that, Lin Ling wiped the sweat from his forehead and stood up. As for Sakura, his lower body was already covered in sweat. At this moment, his breathing was calm, and strands of mysterious aura spread out from his body. If one looked carefully, there seemed to be a worm swimming under his skin, and it was swimming along his entire body. Lin Ling couldn't help but smile. He knew that his brother's strength had increased a lot this time. As for what limit he reached in the end, it would depend on his luck. Shaking his head, Lin Ling didn't interrupt Sakura and left the house. He asked someone to prepare another house and then went in. Looking at the clean room, Lin Ling's heart relaxed. A sense of fatigue finally spread out from his body. Speaking of which, ever since he entered the Kaiyuan River, he hadn't rested for a long time. After the battle in the demonic forest, he had just arrived at Shan Fortress and immediately encountered the Red Alliance. For the next few days he should have a good rest. That night the prairie was quiet. Only the occasional sound of insects could be heard. Standing on the wall of Shan Fortress, there were stars in the distance. Those were the lights of fireflies. However, after the fireflies, there was only darkness. Shan Fortress was brightly lit. The moat outside of Shan Fortress wasn't actually there to stop humans from approaching, but to stop demon snakes. In the prairie, demon snakes were everywhere. Moreover, there were a lot of them. There were even some descendants from the era of gods. Someone once said that these snakes were mutated from the dragon clan. However, after countless years, these snakes weren't any weaker than the dragon clan. In the room, Lin Ling was sitting cross-legged. His eyebrows were slightly relaxed. His powerful soul power had naturally discovered the auras outside the fortress. They were ready to make a move. It was the demon snakes. If a human was alone in the prairie, unless he was very powerful, he would definitely encounter a mishap. However, Lin Ling also sensed that these demon snakes were intelligent and didn't dare to approach Shan Fortress recklessly. Therefore, Lin Ling began to cultivate. Currently, he was at the level 4 martial ancestor realm. However, the realm energy in his 6 stanchions was surging, stabilizing his cultivation. As for his other talents, except for the Great Nether Wind Dragon, all of them had reached the 4th grade. The Spacetime Divine Steel, the Heavenly Dragon's Bone, the Great Nether Wind Dragon, the Realm Devouring Beast, and the Evil Spirit Tribulation Body. As for the other skills, the True Inheritance Dark Sword, if the 9,999 swords were activated, there was a chance that it would produce a wisp of divine energy. This was the sword's strongest skill. The Tyrannical Singing Sword, the Complete Ancestor's Force. Lin Ling had comprehended about 80% of it. Of course, the most powerful trump card was still the God Stairs. Especially the Stairs of Wisdom that had merged with the Illusion God world. Its power had increased significantly. It was also a soul-type martial skill. According to Lin Ling's estimation, he had comprehended about 20% of the Stairs of Wisdom. That being said, its power was extraordinary too. Lin Ling had yet to encounter anything that could resist the Stairs of Wisdom. However, the biggest disadvantage of the Stairs of Wisdom was that it didn't possess any offensive power. It could only be used as a seal. I've accumulated quite a number of monarch crystals. At this rate, I'm afraid I'll be able to reach the 5th layer martial progenitor realm in no time. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.